Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Lettuce Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Becomes Madara's Successor? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku Yagi's life changed dramatically after he was labeled Quirkless. Once a happy child, he became neglected, unsupported, and bullied. Following a fateful appointment, his parents began to ignore him, and his sister and her friends started to mistreat him. The teachers at school turned a blind eye to his struggles. Although there were a few who cared for him, his parents' rejection made it difficult for him to seek their support. This cycle of torment continued for 6 long years until one day, he reached his breaking point. At 10 years old, Izuku sat in class, surrounded by students who were excitedly discussing their future high school choices. The teacher entered with a stack of papers, instructing the students to settle down. He announced that it was time for them to choose which high school they wanted to attend, sparking excitement among the students as they began to showcase their quirks. However, Izuku remained silent, feeling the weight of his isolation. The teacher acknowledged the top students in the class, highlighting their impressive quirks and test results, and mentioned that they might have a chance to get into UA. As the students whispered in admiration, the teacher turned to Izuku, asking if he wanted to attend UA too. Izuku shrank back, bracing himself for the laughter that followed. His classmates pointed out that he could never achieve that dream because he was quirkless. Though he wanted to defend himself, he felt hopeless. Katsuki, one of the bullies, taunted him, reminding him of his status. Izuku could only muster a quiet plea to be allowed to dream. The teacher eventually intervened, telling the bullies to sit down. However, the torment continued as Katsuki grabbed Izuku's notebook and destroyed it, throwing it out the window. Despite the physical and emotional abuse, Izuku found the strength to stand up again, embodying the resilience he had developed over the years. After the bullies left, Izuku collected himself and his belongings. He reflected on the reasons behind their bullying, realizing that they might be trying to protect him from the dangers of the world. He felt a deep sadness, recognizing that while others might have comforted him, his quirkless status isolated him further. A few people treated Izuku with kindness, including Rei Todoroki, an appealing woman who was the mother of the Todoroki siblings, and her children, Fuyumi and Tuya. Mitsuki Bakugu, despite her fiery temper, also showed him compassion. The only teacher who truly supported him was Kurisu Mafuyu, who was angered by the bullying Izuku faced. She tended to his injuries and stood up for him until she had to leave due to financial difficulties, leaving him with a promise to reunite one day. Izuku cherished the memories of 3 kids he had saved from bullying, even though he couldn't remember them clearly. They had played together, and he held on to those moments as a reminder that there were still people who cared. As Izuku reflected on the events of the day, he unknowingly took a shortcut under a bridge, where a slime monster awaited him. The villain attempted to take control of his body, and just as Izuku felt his life slipping away, he heard a familiar voice. Texas Smash. All Might, his idol, swooped in to save him. Filled with hope, Izuku shouted, "All Might, can I be a hero, even though I don't have a quirk?" Unfortunately, the response was not what he had hoped for. All Might told him no, stating that Izuku would be a liability in the field, leaving him heartbroken. Izuku felt as though the world had robbed him of his dreams, and he couldn't understand why. As he walked home, he heard an explosion from a nearby shopping district and instinctively went to investigate. To his surprise, he found himself in a situation where he had somewhat saved Katsuki's life from the sludge villain, only to be scolded for being reckless while Katsuki received praise for his strong quirk. Afterward, he spotted All Might and his sister, Izumi, talking. It was then that he learned a painful truth. The man who had crushed his dreams was his own father, Toshinori Yagi. Izuku watched as Toshinori offered his quirk to Izumi, realizing that his father had the power to fulfill his dreams but chose to give it to his sister instead. Overwhelmed, Izuku walked away, feeling utterly defeated. When he got home, he went straight to his room and fell asleep. The next morning, he woke up feeling emotionally numb. He got dressed, gathered his 13 notebooks, and left for school. As he walked, he thought, Maybe reading my notes will distract me from the constant challenges the world throws at me, or I could enjoy the cherry blossom trees in season. However, his hopes were dashed when he encountered his 5 tormentors, who reminded him of his perceived worthlessness. Despite their insults, Izuku felt detached and unbothered. "Are you even listening to us?" one of them shouted. "Deku will keep telling you until it sinks in that you're worthless," another added. Izuku remained silent, his gaze fixed on the ground. "Stop ignoring us, you stupid Deku," they yelled in frustration. Finally, they crossed a line. Katsuki and Katsumi unleashed their quirks, hitting Izuku in the face with an explosion. He fell but as always, got back up. "Look at you, always getting up for no reason. You're such a disgrace," Izumi taunted. But when they looked at him, they were horrified to see that Izuku's once bright emerald eyes had turned into a dull gray, a result of their attack. "Oh my God, what have we done?" Izumi gasped. They hurried off to school, leaving Izuku alone and wandering. "They must have blinded me," he thought, sighing. "Now to try and find some help. Who am I kidding? No one is going to help me." Izuku wandered aimlessly for what felt like hours until he touched something rough. "Is this a tree? Am I in a forest? How far did I walk to end up here?" Deep in the forest stood an old-style Japanese house. The owner, a man with long black hair and black eyes, was meditating when he heard the disturbance. Grabbing a kunai, he stealthily exited his home, ready to confront the intruder. But when he saw the boy, he paused, recognizing the lost look in Izuku's eyes. "Who are you, young one?" the man asked. Izuku turned toward the voice. "Wait, someone's actually there? Where are you?" "I'm standing right in front of you." "Oh. How could you not see me? I got blinded today." "By what?" "Some bullies. 2 of them had explosion quirks and aimed for my eyes." "I'm sorry to hear that. What is your name, little one?" "Izuku." "No second name?" "I have one, but I don't want to be called that anymore." "That's quite all right. What's your name, sir?" "My name is Madara." Izuku sat at a table, waiting for Madara to return. Madara had gone to make tea and had asked Izuku to wait patiently. Izuku felt grateful for Madara's kindness, especially since he had helped him by allowing him into his home and had even wrapped bandages around Izuku's eyes to ease his discomfort. Trusting Madara, Izuku waited. When Madara returned, he apologized for the delay. Izuku reassured him that it was fine and expressed his gratitude for having someone who cared about him. Madara set the tea down but remembered that he needed to bring food for Izuku, who looked a bit undernourished. Despite Izuku's insistence that he was fine, Madara insisted on getting him something to eat. After a moment of hesitation, Izuku agreed. As Madara left the room, Izuku realized he needed to find the tea. He stood up and began searching, then remembered to use his other senses. By sniffing the air, he was able to locate the tea and return to the table just as Madara came back with rice and fish. Madara noticed Izuku had found the tea and asked how he did it. Izuku explained that he had relied on his other senses since he couldn't see. Madara praised him for his resourcefulness, and in a moment of affection, he gave Izuku a gentle head pat. Surprised by the gesture, Izuku instinctively leaned into it, feeling a warmth he hadn't experienced in a long time. After a brief pause, Izuku asked if they could eat. Madara, still lost in thought, agreed, and they began their meal. As they ate, Madara inquired about the bullying Izuku had faced. Izuku hesitated but eventually shared that it had been happening for 6 years, ever since he was 4 years old. Madara pressed for the reason behind the bullying, and after a moment of doubt, Izuku revealed that it was because he was quirkless. The room fell silent for a moment, and Madara stood up, causing Izuku to flinch in fear. Instead of anger, however, Madara embraced him, reassuring Izuku that he would never hurt him for something beyond his control. Overwhelmed with emotion, Izuku cried into Madara's chest, grateful for his acceptance. Madara reflected on the state of the world, realizing that it had become a harsh place. He then proposed an idea to Izuku, asking him to share everything he knew about their world. Izuku agreed, starting with the concept of quirks. He explained that he had simplified their creation and effects in his notebook. He retrieved the notebook and handed it to Madara, who began reading. Izuku theorized that quirks were a natural evolution of something called chakra, noting that the decline of chakra usage coincided with the rise of quirks. Madara listened intently as Izuku elaborated on how quirks affected society. He explained that people's status was often determined by their quirks, leading to a skewed perception of worth. Those with good quirks were celebrated, while those with bad quirks or none at all faced discrimination and neglect. Madara encouraged Izuku to express his feelings, assuring him that he was safe to do so. Izuku shared how his life had changed drastically after being labeled quirkless. He recounted the neglect from his parents, the bullying from his sister and her friends, and the indifference of teachers. He also mentioned that his father, a renowned hero, had chosen not to help him in favor of seeking a more powerful successor. As their conversation continued, Izuku reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment, grateful for the connection they were forming. Madara looked around, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. What is wrong with this world? It has truly turned into chaos. I've made my decision, but before I share my offer, you must know who I am. Izuku listened intently, eager to hear more. Okay, you have my full attention. Do you know about the Uchiha clan? Madara asked. Of course. They were home to some of the most powerful ninjas in existence. Izuku replied. Madara continued, what if I told you that I am also part of that clan, and I am the strongest among them? Izuku's eyes widened in realization. Wait, you're an Uchiha? That means, you're the legendary Madara Uchiha. Madara raised an eyebrow. Are you not afraid of me? Absolutely not. I'm actually a fan of yours. Izuku exclaimed. Madara looked puzzled. What's a fan? Izuku explained, a fan is someone who admires someone else. I don't think I've had one of those before, Madara mused. Izuku smiled. It surprises me, honestly. I think I may be the only person who admires you. People often twist your story to make you look like the villain, but in reality, you wanted a world of peace and love. You didn't want anyone to suffer like you did, and that signifies a true hero. Madara felt a warmth in his chest at Izuku's words. It had been so long since anyone had spoken to him like this. Even with all the bloodshed and damage I've caused, how can you find it in yourself to admire me? Izuku replied earnestly, sacrifices must be made to achieve the impossible. You didn't want it to come down to violence, but that's how it went. I admire your tenacity and your reason for pursuing your dream. Madara was taken aback. Someone actually admired him and looked beyond his past actions to see the bigger picture. Now that I know you admire me, I can ask you this with full confidence. Izuku, would you become my successor? Izuku paused, trying to grasp the weight of Madara's request. Could you explain what you want me to achieve as your successor? I want you to do what I couldn't. I want you to complete the Eye of the Moon plan and bring everlasting peace to this world. Izuku hesitated. Why would you choose me? I don't have special powers, I'm just ordinary. You're not ordinary at all, Izuku. You're the most intelligent person I've ever met, and you have the potential to gain powers, Madara reassured him. Izuku was curious. What do you mean? I can sense that you have an incredible amount of chakra. It might be related to you being quirkless, but if you learn to harness and control your chakra, you could change this world for the better. Do you really think so? Izuku asked, hope rising in his voice. I know so, Madara affirmed. Then I accept. But what about my, blindness? Madara smiled. I have a way to fix that. I can give you your own Sharingan. Izuku's eyes lit up. You can. Of course, but the process may be a bit uncomfortable, Madara warned. I can handle a lot of discomfort, so lead the way. Izuku replied with determination. All right, let's go, Madara said as they both stood up and walked out of the room, filled with newfound hope and purpose. Meanwhile, a certain group of people watched from a distance, their thoughts clouded with uncertainty about the unfolding events. Izumi Yagi raced through the school halls, tears streaming down her face. She had been desperately seeking help for her brother, Izuku, but every teacher she approached turned a blind eye when they heard his name. Why is no one listening? she exclaimed, frustration boiling inside her. As the daughter of Tashinori Yagi, known as All Might, and Inko Yagi, she felt the weight of her family legacy. Izumi was determined to protect her brother, but the realization that she had failed him gnawed at her. Is this what he had to deal with? Us bullying him while the teachers ignored him? I should have stopped it. No, I can't dwell on that now. I need to get him help. An idea struck her, and she sprinted toward the principal's office. Bursting through the doors, she startled the principal. Get my mom and dad on the phone now, she demanded. The principal, taken aback, quickly dialed the Yagi household. At home, Tashinori and Inko were enjoying a rare day off when the phone rang. I'll get it. Inko called out, picking up the receiver. Mom, if that's you, I need help immediately. Izumi's voice was frantic. Calm down, sweetie. What do you need help with? Inko asked, trying to soothe her daughter. Mom, we heard Izuku. Izumi cried. Slow down. Who's Izuku? Inko was confused. Izumi's heart sank. Your son, my brother, Izuku. Inko hesitated, then handed the phone to Tashinori. Toshi, can you talk to Izumi for a moment? I need to check something. Tashinori took the phone. What's up, Izumi? Dad, we really hurt Izuku, she repeated, panic rising in her voice. Who's Izuku? He asked, bewildered. Izumi felt despair wash over her. No, please not you too. Before she could explain further, Tashinori heard a thud and rushed to find Inko in tears next to a book. Inko, what's wrong? He asked, kneeling beside her. Toshi, Izumi is telling the truth. We have a son, but we've neglected him, she sobbed. Tashinori picked up the book, flipping through pages filled with memories of a smiling young boy with emerald green hair. As he reached the end, he realized Izuku was missing from their lives. We'll be there as fast as we can, he told Izumi before hanging up. He urged Inko to get ready, and together they used their quirks to rush to the school. Upon arrival, Izumi ran to them, tears in her eyes, repeating, It's my fault that this happened. Confused, they began searching for Izuku. After a fruitless half-hour, they concluded he had wandered off and would need a search party, which wouldn't be ready until later that night. While waiting, Tashinori and Inko wanted to understand what had happened to Izuku over the past 6 years. Izumi suggested they involve Bakugo and Todoroki for a complete picture. As the school day ended, the Yagis returned home to await the others. After an hour, Mitsuki arrived, dragging her children, Katsuki and Katsumi. What did these two do to warrant a meeting? She asked, scanning the room for Izuku. Inko tried to calm her. We need to wait for everyone to arrive before we can begin. Mitsuki reluctantly agreed, but her children shivered at the thought of what was to come. Just then, Fuyumi Todoroki entered with her siblings, Shoto and Shoka. Dad couldn't make it today, so I'll be replacing him, she explained. Alright, then we can begin. Izumi, you start us off, Tashinori said. As the hours passed, they uncovered the troubling truth about Izuku's experiences. Mitsuki and Fuyumi were furious about how their children had treated Izuku, but their anger intensified when they learned about Tashinori and Inko's neglect. The room erupted in shouting until Mitsuki and Fuyumi decided to leave, taking their children with them. Silence fell over the Yagi household until a knock at the door broke it. Tashinori opened the door to find his friend, Tsukachi. Hey Toshi, I'm here to get some clues on Izuku's whereabouts, Tsukachi said. Thank you for doing this. Nobody would take this job because Izuku is quirkless, Tashinori replied. Just lead me to his room, and I'll see what I can find, Tsukachi said, stepping inside. As he entered Izuku's room, he took in the surroundings, sensing the weight of the situation. The room was bland, devoid of posters and color, completely lifeless. Tsukachi moved over to Izuku's desk and opened a drawer, discovering a cassette tape. This could be helpful, he exclaimed, taking the tape to speak with the Yagis. Toshi, do you have a cassette player? Tsukachi asked. I don't think so, Tashinori replied. In my room, Izumi said, leaving Inko and Tashinori a bit confused. Why do you have a cassette player in your room, Izumi? Inko inquired. It's okay, we don't need to pry, but could we please use the cassette player just this once? Tashinori asked. Okay, I'll go and get it, Izumi said, heading to her room. As she retrieved the cassette player, she noticed several tapes labeled Izuku. She had taken them to listen to her brother's voice, unable to confront him after everything that had happened. Guilt washed over her. She feared her brother despised her after she had turned against him. Returning to the living room, Izumi handed the cassette player to Tsukachi, who set everything up and prepared to play the tape. Just so you know, this could reveal all his feelings and emotions, so be prepared, Tsukachi warned. The Yagis nodded, and Tsukachi pressed play. A staticky sound filled the room before Izuku's voice emerged. I didn't see you there. Don't be shy, make yourself comfortable. Surprised? I've been known to prod at the tiger a bit too much for comfort. Izumi felt a pang of guilt, fully aware of what he meant. There's few things more entertaining than a good song, don't you think? Izuku continued, and Izumi braced herself, knowing he was about to sing. I'm rather fond of this one. It's a little bit before my time, but it is such a thoughtful melody. Despite the sadness, Izumi couldn't help but smile at her brother's calming voice. She recognized that this was his way of expressing his emotions. Ahem. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some starry night. As he sang, the room fell silent, and when the song ended, Izumi was the first to speak. I'm going to go put up missing posters. I'll leave you 3 to whatever you need to do, she said, picking up the flyers she had printed earlier and heading outside. All right, let's address the obvious, Tsukachi said, breaking the silence. All of the hate was clearly directed at you in that song, Toshi. Whatever happened, it was really bad. I can also tell he was planning on running away even before he got hurt. After a moment of silence, Tsukachi continued, I suggest you go to bed early. This isn't good for your mental state. Don't worry, the search team will be deployed soon. We'll find him, and then you can make things right. Inko and Tashinori nodded, heading to their room to rest. With nothing left to do for the time being, Tsukachi left the Yagi household and returned home. Meanwhile, Izumi was outside, putting up a missing poster of her brother on a lamppost. She stared at it for a moment, tears welling in her eyes. As she turned to put up more posters, she accidentally bumped into a woman, causing them both to stumble. I'm sorry, I should have been paying attention. Izumi exclaimed. Oh no, it's fine. Let me help you with your posters, the woman said, leaning down to assist. When she saw the poster and who it was about, her eyes widened. Izumi, what happened to him? The woman asked, startling Izumi. Recognizing her, Izumi replied, Kurisu-sensei? Chapter end. Madara reminded Izuku that the process they were about to undertake would be incredibly painful, but Izuku was determined to proceed. They were in a room marked with intricate symbols, preparing for a blood transfusion that Madara believed would enhance Izuku's control over his chakra and help him unlock the full potential of his Sharingan. Madara instructed Izuku to remember that once their blood was exchanged, they would need to perform the eye transplant immediately, as Izuku would likely be too exhausted to remain conscious afterward. Izuku affirmed his understanding, and they began the procedure. As Madara performed a series of hand signs, Izuku's blood was drawn and replaced with Madara's. Madara observed with admiration as Izuku endured the pain without complaint. Once the transfusion was complete, Izuku stood on shaky legs, and with little time to spare, Madara swiftly replaced Izuku's eyes with his own, ensuring the procedure was done before Izuku lost consciousness. Afterward, Madara carefully placed Izuku down and carried him to a room where he could rest. You did well, Izuku. Now rest, you'll need it, Madara said before leaving to meditate. Later that night, after finishing his meditation, Madara was preparing a meal for himself and Izuku when he sensed 2 unfamiliar chakra signatures approaching the forest. He quickly turned off the stove and rushed outside to investigate, while Izuku began to stir awake. Ugh, what time is it? Izuku groaned as he got up and looked. To his astonishment, he realized he could see clearly. Wait, I can see. As memories of the earlier events flooded back, he marveled at the thought of having met the legendary Madara Uchiha. Just then, A sharp sensation in his eyes reminded him of the transformation he had undergone. He searched for a mirror and upon finding one, was stunned to see his new red eyes adorned with a single tomo, his Sharingan. "Is this real?" he exclaimed, excitement building within him. With Madara's guidance, he could finally become a true hero. He understood that challenges lay ahead, but he was ready to embrace them. Determined not to waste any time, he dropped the mirror and dashed out of his room, drawn by the scent of food, but found the kitchen empty. Where is he? Maybe this is a test to find him through his chakra signal. Izuku thought, focusing intently. He closed his eyes and instinctively located Madara's immense chakra reserve. "Yes, I did it. But why is he so far from the house? There are 2 more chakra signals. Are they intruders?" After a moment of contemplation, he resolved to observe the situation. If Madara is confronting those intruders, I should watch and learn. With that decision made, he stepped outside but paused when something shiny caught his eye. He picked up a kunai and pocketed it for safety before pursuing Madara's chakra signal. Meanwhile, Madara had already positioned himself near the 2 intruders, eavesdropping from the trees. "Why are we searching for this quirkless kid again? His disappearance doesn't change anything," one hero complained. "We're doing this because the Yagis are important in society, and returning this kid will boost our popularity," the other replied. Madara, having heard enough, leaped down from his hiding spot and swiftly attacked, sending the weaker-looking hero tumbling into the shadows. The larger hero retaliated, but Madara quickly realized that he needed a different strategy, as his attacks were not having the desired effect. After dodging a powerful punch, Madara made eye contact with the hero, who recoiled in fear. The hero, now visibly shaken, attempted another strike, but Madara continued to evade him. However, one of the hero's punches landed, sending Madara crashing into a tree. The hero seized the opportunity and charged, delivering a powerful blow to Madara's stomach, causing him to double over. "Since there's no one to stop me, I'm going to finish you," the hero boasted. Madara remained silent, prompting the hero to ask, "Do you have any last words?" "Congratulations," Madara replied coolly, leaving the hero confused. He couldn't continue his sentence as he started coughing and fell to the ground, clutching his chest. "What is going on?" one of the heroes asked, panic in his voice. "That was Genjutsu," Madara replied, watching as the hero closed his eyes and then reopened them to find Madara standing above him. "Now it seems the tables have turned. Do you have any last words?" Madara asked. The hero took a moment, seemingly looking past Madara, and then smirked. "Yeah, I do. Kill him now." Madara glanced over his shoulder just in time to see another hero he had kicked earlier lunging at him with a knife. "Insolent fool," Madara thought. "I've got you now," the other hero began, but was abruptly cut off as something flickered in front of him, stabbing him in the chest with a kunai. Madara's eyes widened in surprise. How? He should still be resting. How is he up and moving? The fallen hero hit the ground with a thud, and the figure who had attacked him turned around, revealing himself to be Izuku. Madara noticed something unusual about him. "Is that the 2 tomo?" "I know Madara could have handled it, but I wasn't going to just sit back and watch you sneak attack him like that," Izuku said, determination in his voice. Madara turned his attention back to the hero he was about to defeat. "Bad choice for last words," he remarked, as the hero succumbed to his injuries. Madara approached Izuku, a hint of admiration in his tone. "Well, color me impressed. Not only are you up earlier than expected, but you've also unlocked your 2 tomo Sharingan and drawn first blood." "Wait, I unlocked my 2 tomo?" Izuku exclaimed. "You didn't know?" Madara asked, raising an eyebrow. "I only had the 1 tomo when I woke up," Izuku replied, confusion evident on his face. It seems your longing to protect me unlocked your 2 tomo," Madara explained. "That's the most logical answer," Izuku agreed. "Also, how did you find me and use the body flicker?" Madara inquired. "Oh, as for finding you, I just searched for your chakra signal." "The body flicker?" "I read that it enhances physical capabilities, so I heightened my chakra to flicker in front of this fake hero," Izuku explained. "Not only are you a genius, but you're a natural. I've never seen nor heard of someone doing what you have on their first attempt, especially in combat. I'm very impressed, and all I can say is, I'm proud of you. Thank you so much. Izuku beamed, feeling a rush of pride. Madara chuckled to himself, observing Izuku's excitement. Alright, Izuku, let's talk about your training. First, drag those two bodies with you, it'll be good exercise. Right? Understood, Madara? Izuku replied, starting to drag the bodies, finding it challenging but rewarding. Now, let's discuss your weapon skills. Although you got the kill, your technique was a bit sloppy. Don't worry, you can't be perfect at everything on your first try. I will train you in multiple forms of weaponry, and when I'm done, you'll be able to handle any situation with ease. Understood? Yes, Madara. Izuku affirmed. I will also teach you all forms of nature release. Once you master this, the elements will be at your command, and you can even start combining them. You will learn every jutsu available, and at the rate you're going, I'd say you'll master your Sharingan by the end of the month. Really? Izuku asked, eyes wide with excitement. Yes, really. You will also learn to master control over your chakra and become master of taijutsu. Am I understood? Yes, Madara. Izuku replied eagerly. Good. From this day forward, you are an honorary Uchiha. Are you serious? Izuku exclaimed, disbelief and joy mixing in his voice. Of course I am, Madara confirmed. Whoa, this is incredible. Izuku said, grinning. You won't be saying that when your training begins. So, before your training tomorrow, why don't we do something fun for the rest of the night? Madara suggested. I'd love that. Izuku responded enthusiastically. Then you better drag those bodies quicker, Izuku Uchiha, Madara urged. Yes, Madara. Izuku replied, the name feeling good to him as he continued his task. Fuyumi Todoroki had just received devastating news about Izuku's past 6 years, and she was filled with anger and heartbreak. Discovering that her younger siblings, whom she had always seen as innocent, had tormented him was unbearable. She remained silent during the taxi ride home, consumed by her emotions. Upon arriving, they were greeted by Enji Todoroki, also known as Endeavor. How did that meeting with the Yagis go? Endeavor asked dismissively. It wasn't pointless. Your two youngest children tortured Izuku for 6 years. He was innocent, and they still did this to him. They blinded him. Don't you understand? He could be anywhere. Fuyumi's voice trembled as tears streamed down her face. Endeavor's response was cold. I don't care. Fuyumi stood in shock, unable to process his words. Endeavor then turned to Shoto and Shoka, demanding, did you both use your fire side when attacking him? Of course not. Shoka shouted defiantly. We will never use your side. Shoto added. Endeavor, frustrated, grabbed their wrists and dragged them away, leaving Fuyumi alone with her sorrow. But what did you do to deserve this, Izuku? Why couldn't people just accept you and care for you? She cried, feeling helpless. As she reached for the phone, she heard anguished screams coming from the room where her siblings had been taken. When the phone rang, her mother, Rei, answered. Hello, Fuyumi dear, how have you been? I need to talk with you in person. There's been something really bad. Fuyumi was interrupted by another scream. Rei's voice turned serious. He's hurting them. That man is hurting them. Mom, that's not the only thing. I can explain when I see you. Of course, sweetie, that's fine. Fuyumi hung up and rushed out the door, leaving the cries of her siblings behind. She arrived at the mental hospital where her father had confined her mother and approached the receptionist. Ah, Fuyumi, I wasn't expecting you at this hour. What's the occasion? I'm here to talk with my mother. I need someone to talk to right now. Noticing the pain in Fuyumi's eyes, the receptionist decided to make an exception. You know the room. I hope you enjoy your stay. Thank you so much. Fuyumi exclaimed, darting towards room. She paused outside, contemplating how to share the heavy news with her mother. It was a lot to process, and she knew she needed to be gentle. Come on, Fuyumi, you can do this. You can't leave her in the dark about what's happening, she encouraged herself. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door and stepped inside. Rei was sitting by the window, seemingly lost in thought. Fuyumi closed the door and caught her mother's attention. "Oh, hello sweetie, how are you?" Rei asked warmly. Fuyumi felt tears welling up. She realized she couldn't take her time with this. "I'm sorry, Mom," she said, rushing forward to hug her mother tightly. "Fuyumi?" Rei was taken aback. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Fuyumi cried. "Sorry for what, sweetie? You can't control what he's doing. It's Izuku." As she spoke his name, the room seemed to chill, and Rei's expression shifted to one of fierce determination. "Fuyumi, tell me what happened to him." Tell. Now." After a moment of hesitation, Fuyumi shared everything, her voice breaking as she recounted the painful details. Rei sat in silence, tears streaming down her face, grappling with the horror of what her children had done. "I'm sorry Fuyumi began. "Stop," Rei interrupted gently. "Don't blame yourself for their actions. You didn't do anything wrong." "But what if we never see him again? What if he's gone?" Fuyumi's voice quivered with fear. "Look at me, dear," Rei said, meeting her daughter's gaze. "He is strong and he will survive. I know we will see him again." Overwhelmed, Fuyumi broke down, hugging her mother tightly as tears flowed freely. To comfort her, Rei began to sing a lullaby softly. "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." As Fuyumi drifted off to sleep, Rei tucked her in and laid her head down at the edge of the bed, her mind racing with thoughts of Izuku. Eventually, she managed to push the worries aside, whispering a silent plea for his safety before surrendering to sleep. Mitsuki walked back home with her 2 children, feeling a mix of frustration and reluctance. Though she sometimes wished she could send them away, she didn't want to stoop to that level. Arriving at their appealing home, she sighed deeply. "You two aren't going to hear the end of this from your father, you got that?" she warned. "Shut it," Katsuki retorted. Katsumi chimed in, "That old man isn't going to do anything. You know why? Because he doesn't care about that mistake." Mitsuki looked at the twins, appalled by their words after their recent actions. She stepped inside the house, the twins trailing behind her. "Masaru, we need to talk," she called out. A man with brown hair and glasses, looking somewhat timid, emerged from the living room. "What's wrong, honey?" Masaru asked. "I'm going to explain everything that happened in the meeting with the Yagis, and you're going to sit down and listen, am I clear?" Mitsuki instructed. "Crystal," Masaru replied. After about half an hour, Mitsuki finished explaining the events concerning Izuku, while Masaru sat quietly, his hair casting shadows over his eyes. "Now that you know what happened, help me think up a suitable punishment for those two," Mitsuki said. Masaru shook his head. "No need." "Huh?" Mitsuki responded, confused. "I said there's no need. They didn't do anything wrong," he insisted. Mitsuki was taken aback. "What?" "In fact, they did the world a favor. Now there's one less mistake taking up space," Masaru continued. Mitsuki's expression hardened. "Get out of my house." Masaru looked surprised. Mitsuki stood up, walked over to him, and firmly guided him towards the front door. "What are you doing?" he exclaimed. She opened the door and pushed him out, her voice filled with anger. "Listen well. Never come back to this house again, and if you do, I won't hesitate to make it clear how unwelcome you are." She slammed the door shut, causing the house to tremble. Storming up to her room, she collapsed onto her bed and began to cry. "Why? Why? You don't deserve this, Izuku. Why do people hurt you over something you had no control over?" Eventually, exhausted from everything, she fell asleep. Meanwhile, Toshinori and Inko lay together in their bed, struggling to find rest. "Toshi, are you awake?" Inko whispered. "Yes," Toshinori replied. "Why did we neglect him?" Inko asked softly. "I don't know, honey," he admitted. "What will we do once they find him and bring him back to us?" she wondered. "I don't think we should dwell on that right now. We'll figure it out when the time comes. For now, let's try to get some sleep," Toshinori suggested. "Okay, Toshi," Inko agreed. They both eventually drifted off. Meanwhile, Izumi and Kurisu sat at a table in Kurisu's home. Izumi recounted everything that had happened after she left. "So that's what happened," Kurisu said, processing the information. "Yes, that's everything," Izumi confirmed, looking down in shame. "I'm appalled, completely and utterly appalled," Kurisu stated. Izumi remained silent, her head bowed. "Did you really think the things you did would sway him or protect him?" Kurisu pressed. Izumi kept her gaze lowered. "Look at me," Kurisu insisted. Finally, Izumi lifted her head, and Kurisu's eyes widened in surprise. "Izuku." The scene shifted to a brightly lit but eerily quiet city. A figure leaped from building to building, stopping on the tallest one. The person wore a mask with an opening near one eye, strange patterns adorning it. Dressed in black breaths, gloves, and a robe with a unique symbol, they reflected on the past. "I hope you can see me right now, elder brother. I can't believe it's been 6 years since that day." 3 years had passed since their last encounter. In a flashback, Izuku was leaping from tree to tree, skillfully launching various long-range weapons at targets set up throughout the forest. After hitting every target, he returned home and collapsed onto the ground, breathless. "That was the fastest time you've clocked. Good job, Izuku," Madara praised. "Thank you," Izuku replied, breathing. "Oh, seems like you're tired," Madara observed. "Just a little bit," Izuku admitted. "Then I guess you're not fit enough to spar with me today." Izuku's breathing stopped as he looked up at Madara, determination shining in his eyes. "I guess we'll just have to spar tomorrow." "Not a chance," Izuku interrupted, quickly getting into a fighting stance. Madara raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Where did that exhaustion go?" "It vanished. Get ready, because today is the day I'll finally beat you, elder brother," Izuku declared. Madara chuckled. "We've done this twice in the past 3 years. Today will be your 3rd attempt. Same rules as before. The Sharingan is allowed, but no Genjutsu. Taijutsu and ninjutsu can be used without restrictions, and no weapons. Now that the rules are established, are you ready?" Izuku nodded confidently. "Very well then," Madara said, getting into his own stance. The tension in the air thickened, and if anyone else were present, they might have struggled to breathe. But Izuku and Madara remained focused, staring each other down. Suddenly, they both activated their 3-tomo Sharingan. "Let's dance," they shouted in unison. They charged at each other, colliding with a force that cracked the ground beneath them. It quickly turned into a power struggle, with Izuku feeling overwhelmed. He broke the struggle and aimed a strike at Madara, who easily parried it and countered. Izuku ducked just in time to avoid the blow and attempted a capoeira kick, but Madara dodged effortlessly. In a swift motion, Izuku formed a tiger hand sign and inhaled deeply. "Katan, Gokakyu no Jutsu," he exclaimed, releasing a massive fireball. Madara, momentarily taken aback by the speed of the jutsu, managed to evade it thanks to his Sharingan. The fireball soared into the sky, and Izuku seized the opportunity to sweep Madara's legs. As Madara fell, Izuku lunged to pounce on him, but Madara kicked him away into the forest. Madara quickly regained his footing and began searching for Izuku, his eyes closed as he focused on sensing his chakra. "Where are you hiding, Izuku?" he wondered. Meanwhile, Izuku perched in a tree, waiting for Madara to come into view. After a few tense moments, he spotted him and prepared to make his move. Izuku dropped down just as Madara noticed him. "There you are," Madara shouted, dashing toward Izuku at high speed. Unfazed, Izuku clasped his hands together to form the snake hand sign and slammed his hand down on the ground. "Doton Kekai, Doro Domo," he called out, causing the earth to rise and trap Madara in a dome. "Damn it. I was moving too quickly to avoid the jutsu, and now he's draining my chakra. I need to get out," Madara thought, but his thoughts were interrupted by Izuku's voice from outside the dome. "Katan, Guka Mekyaku," Izuku shouted. Madara's eyes widened as he realized the danger. He leaped with all his strength, breaking through the top of the dome just as flames engulfed it, leaving only ashes behind. "He has definitely improved," I nearly got roasted alive, Madara thought, still airborne. He formed a plus sign with his fingers, causing puffs of smoke to appear. When the smoke cleared, clones of Madara filled the sky. Looking down, Madara spotted Izuku, who was forming a tiger hand sign and summoning a large orb of water above his head. Suiton, Suryuban, Izuku declared, sending WHPS of water to deal with the clones while he formed the same plus sign Madara had used earlier. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he exclaimed, creating 3 clones of himself. Time to end this, Izuku said, his clones taking out the remaining Madara clones. However, Madara had lost all momentum from his jump and was now in free fall. That was impressive, Izuku. But now what will you? Madara began, only to cut himself off as he saw Izuku's next move. Raisin Shuriken, Izuku shouted, launching the attack toward Madara. Panicking, Madara realized he couldn't counter this move due to the restrictions he had placed on himself. He had no choice but to avoid it. With finesse, he dove past the attack, letting it soar into the sky. He then accelerated downward, drop-kicking Izuku into the ground and forming a small crater. Looks like I win, Madara declared, as Izuku shakily pointed past him. Madara suddenly vanished in a puff of smoke, leaving Izuku standing with his right hand cloaked in lightning, raising it towards the darkening clouds above. Madara's eyes widened as he noticed the ominous gray clouds gathering, followed by a flash of lightning striking down. Realization hit him as he recalled Izuku's earlier fireball attack, which had soared into the sky. I've been had. This was his plan all along, he thought. Izuku's hand acted as a lightning rod, amplifying his final attack. This is the end. Chidori, he shouted, disappearing in a flash of lightning and reappearing almost directly in front of Madara. A brilliant blue light engulfed the forest as the attack was unleashed. When the light faded, a blue ribcage avatar appeared but quickly disintegrated, revealing Izuku's hand just inches from Madara's chest. They locked eyes, and Madara's expression shifted. His eyes no longer held the familiar 3-tomo but a completely different pattern. The intense stare-down lasted a few moments before Madara raised his hands in surrender. You win, he declared. Izuku blinked in surprise. I did. You did, spectacularly I might add, Madara replied. But I didn't even hit you once, Izuku protested. That may be true, but I technically cheated, Madara explained. I allowed the Sharingan, but that didn't include the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Your final attack forced my hand, and that made you victorious. Izuku's eyes widened in disbelief. I actually did it. Congratulations, Izuku. How about we go back and celebrate your accomplishment? Madara suggested. Yes, I mean, certainly, elder brother, Izuku responded, excitement bubbling within him. As they walked home, Madara's thoughts drifted beyond the celebration. It seems you're finally ready, Izuku. I'm sorry in advance. The next morning, Izuku was still asleep, recovering from the sparring match. Suddenly, he was jolted awake as something slammed down on his face, making it hard to breathe. I got him. Quick, let's get him out of here before the other guy gets back, an intruder shouted. Instincts kicked in, and Izuku grabbed the kunai hidden under his pillow, stabbing the intruder in the chest. The intruder collapsed, and as Izuku removed the pillow, his heart sank at the sight before him. Elder brother, he exclaimed, panic rising. Izuku. Madara managed to say, his voice weak. I'm sorry. I didn't want to do this. Izuku cried. It's all right. This is what I wanted, Madara reassured him. But why? What could possibly make you want this? Izuku asked, tears streaming down his face. Look at your eyes. They're like mine, but they also have the pattern of an old student of mine, Madara explained. Izuku noticed the stinging sensation in his eyes and rushed to the mirror. The Mangekyo Sharingan. You beat me yesterday. That was your final test. The things you have yet to learn. I cannot teach you. Unfortunately, I cannot be here to witness what you will accomplish. The most I can do is give you one last thing to help you move forward with Project Tsukinomi. I don't have much time left, so I need you to listen to me, Izuku. Despite the tears, Izuku nodded weakly. I have left scrolls in the house explaining the lessons you will learn while I am no longer here. I also left a letter for you since I don't have much time to say goodbye. Izuku felt helpless, watching his elder brother in front of him, giving his last words. He didn't know how to heal others, so he could only listen to Madara's final requests. After I pass on, take my eyes. I don't care if I'm dead or alive, I won't let you go blind again. I don't know what will happen if you use an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan as a swap, but I guess you'll find out. Okay, I will, elder brother, Izuku promised. But now for my last request, I need you to take this. Madara handed him a kunai with a tag attached. Wait, isn't this? Izuku started. It is. After reading the letter I wrote, I want you to take it and put it anywhere you want. Those are my last requests. Izuku gripped the kunai tightly, ceasing his tears. I'll do it, elder brother. I promise I will. Madara smiled weakly. Thank you. He was interrupted by a coughing fit. I guess my time is up. Don't let yourself waver from our goal. Be strong and be safe. Goodbye, little brother. Goodbye, elder brother, Izuku whispered, watching as Madara passed away. Later, Izuku wandered through a forest, searching for something. This wasn't the forest he usually stayed in, it was a place from his childhood. After a while, he found the spot he was looking for. Back to the place where everything started to change, he murmured. He walked under the log bridge and stopped at the end of the river, where there was a small drop. Taking the kunai out of his pocket, he threw it into the water, fulfilling the last of Madara's requests. In a flicker, he disappeared. Present time, Izuku reflected. You passed on. Izuku lowered his mask slightly, revealing his darkening green hair and determined eyes. As he gazed over the brightly lit city, thoughts raced through his mind. He reflected on his journey, realizing that he didn't need to swap eyes to gain the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. All he had to do was remove the eyes, keeping their essence intact. Just then he sensed a familiar presence nearby. Lunar eclipse, a voice called out. Izuku stood still as a figure resembling a rabbit skidded to a halt before him. Dim that quirk of yours? It's so cheap, the figure exclaimed. With a resigned sigh, Izuku replied, What do you want this time, Miruko? I'm here for a rematch. And you know what the stakes are, she declared confidently. Izuku let out another annoyed sigh as he looked at the determined rabbit hero. How many times are you going to fight me? I've beaten you 300 times. I feel like it's going to be at least another 300 times, Miruko shot back. Izuku shook his head, exasperated. The nerve of you heroes is unbearable. I don't really care. I've been trying to beat you and capture you for 3 years now and have failed every single time. The only way out for you is to surrender, she insisted. You know what? I think I'll stick to having free reign over my actions, he replied defiantly. Then let's get this battle started, Madara. Miruko challenged. In a flash, Izuku's body flickered away, leaving Miruko momentarily dumbfounded. Damn it, she exclaimed, realizing he had vanished. Izuku blended into the shadows of the night, nicer at his craft, protecting the innocent and confronting those who threatened them. He was known as Madara. Izuku stood on a building, watching the sun rise on a new day. He had just finished his nightly patrol and was ready to head home. Frustration crossed his masked face as he thought about the challenges he faced. It felt like the elusive rabbit he had been pursuing was making his job 10 times harder, getting faster with each encounter. As he prepared to teleport home using Kamui, he noticed an armored truck driving by. Curiosity piqued, he decided to investigate. After hopping across buildings for about 20 minutes, he followed the truck to a warehouse. Crouching on the edge of a nearby building, he watched as 4 armed men exited the truck. Realizing he needed to find another way in, Izuku spotted an open window on an upper floor. Silently, he descended and slipped through the window, positioning himself behind the railing to observe the scene below. The warehouse appeared ordinary, aside from the armed men and the truck. The goons celebrated their successful transport, but Izuku's patience was wearing thin. He decided it was time to act. He jumped down, surprising the 2 remaining goons, and swiftly incapacitated them. Hearing the commotion, the other two goons rushed back inside, weapons drawn. Ignoring their threats, Izuku advanced toward them. As they fired, the bullets seemed to pass harmlessly through him. In a flash, he took them down, leaving only the driver, who stepped out of the truck with his hands raised. The driver pleaded for his life, claiming he was just a driver in need of money. Izuku's commanding presence silenced him. He approached the driver, making it clear that he had a task for him. After revealing part of his face, he instructed the driver to spread a message: "Madara is out for blood." With that, Izuku placed the driver under a genjutsu, causing him to collapse. He then turned his attention to the truck, opening the doors to reveal something unexpected. Inside, he found a damaged costume that included a torn cape, a dark blue bodysuit, and a pair of white boots. As he examined the contents, he noticed a capsule in the corner. Approaching it, he squinted to see a young woman with black hair, seemingly asleep inside. Despite his exhaustion, Izuku felt a strong urge to help her. With a resigned sigh, he realized he couldn't just walk away. He gripped the glass separating them and pulled it off, then placed the woman over his shoulder and picked up the case that presumably contained her clothes. "Now, time to go home, Kamui," he declared. Time passed, and a voice echoed in the darkness: "You're not complete. You're not ready. You need to wake up." Suddenly, the woman Izuku had saved shot up from her sleep, breathing and sweating. What was that?" she murmured, looking around and realizing something. "I'm not dead." She stood up and walked over to a mirror, and upon seeing her reflection, she quickly covered herself with her hands. However, she slowly removed them as she took a better look at herself. I don't look a day older than the day I died, but how?" After a few moments of astonishment at her youthful appearance, she noticed a robe with a strange symbol on it. "What's the symbol supposed to be, a table tennis racket?" she wondered. She saw a note attached to the robe and began to read it. "When you're ready, put this on and meet me in the kitchen. Real helpful advice, Mr. Unknown." She donned the robe and exited the room. "Could have at least given me directions to the kitchen." As she made her way down the hall, she heard whistling and followed the sound. Upon entering the kitchen, she spotted Izuku sitting at a table, facing away from her, seemingly sewing something. "Is that my hero suit?" she thought, beginning to notice the tune he was whistling. "You're never fully dressed without a smile? Must be an old geezer." Izuku stiffened, stopping both his sewing and whistling. "Oh no, I said that out loud," he thought, turning to her. "Hi. Ah, you're awake," Izuku said, reaching for his mask, but she interrupted him. "You don't need to wear that. I'd much rather talk with you face to face," she insisted. "Fine then," he replied, turning to face her. She looked slightly shocked by his youthful appearance, and his voice seemed surprisingly familiar. "So you're not an old geezer," she remarked. "I can hear you," he responded. "You know, for someone who whistles songs about smiling, you don't seem to be doing much of it," she pointed out. "I already regret this," he thought. "I know what's about to happen, and just so you know, no matter how many times you try to convince me, my response will always be no. Come on, just a little smile please. It's not that hard, just copy me," she encouraged. "Oh, now I recognize you. Nana Shimura, X#1 hero, quirk. Float. How could I forget?" he said. "I'm glad you know who I am. Now about that smile." "No, I've got some questions that need to be answered, and I have rules that need to be set if you're going to be staying here," he interrupted. "Fine. But I swear, I'll make you smile at some point," she challenged. "Sure you will. Now let's discuss." Time passed, and Izuku was back out on his nightly patrol with Miruko chasing him as usual. "Could you not keep chasing me for 5 minutes?" he exclaimed. "Hell no. I didn't get to fight you at all yesterday, so I'm making sure I get a fight today," Miruko replied, determined. Izuku was getting frustrated and was ready to give in and just fight her when he spotted someone in an alleyway below them, clearly wanting to be noticed. How am I going to catch up with them and lose this rabbit? Am I seriously going to have to resort to using that? He thought, reaching for his mask. Miruko noticed. He took off the mask. Izuku's left eye began to glow, and he focused. "Kuranisu." In an instant he vanished without a trace. Miruko came to a halt on a building, bewildered. What the hell? Where was the warning? He just vanished. He just vanished. While Miruko continued to express her frustration, Izuku found himself slumped against a wall in the alleyway, breathing. I'm still not used to using that, he admitted, wiping the blood from his eye and liking it. Well, no matter, he chuckled. You know you're alive if you feel the pain. Footsteps echoed in the alley, and Izuku calmly put his mask back on. Hello, Madara, a voice greeted him. Seems word spread quickly, Izuku thought. Hello, crusty lips. What did you just call me? The voice replied, annoyed. Well, you haven't exactly given me your name, Izuku shot back. I'm Tamura Shigaraki, the figure introduced himself. Well then, Shigaraki, what did you want to talk to me about? Izuku asked. What makes you think I wanted to talk with you? Shigaraki countered. Believe me, my eyes alone can tell me what your deepest desires are, Izuku stated confidently. Fair enough. I want you to speak with someone, Shigaraki said. And who would this someone be? Izuku inquired. My mister, Shigaraki answered. Sure, why not? Izuku agreed. Shigaraki motioned to a purple portal that began to materialize. Kurojairi, he called out, gesturing for Izuku to walk through it, and Izuku did just that. Once Izuku walked out the other side of the portal, it closed behind him. He looked around, searching for the vessel he had heard about. As if on cue, a small light illuminated the face of a man with a menacing aura. Izuku noted, your presence alone suggests something ominous. The man replied, and you don't seem to be afraid. Why is that? Izuku responded, I guess you could say I've cheated death, so I've become numb to the fear of it. The man, known as All for One, remarked, My, you have quite a way with words, Madara. Izuku cut him off. Let's skip the flattery, All for One. Defo continued, you seem quite intelligent if you managed to figure out who I am, or perhaps someone informed you. Izuku shifted the conversation, let's get to why Shigaraki wanted me to talk to you. Defo nodded, all right, but I'm a bit confused. I have a knack for researching people, and when I tried to find information about you, I found nothing. Izuku thought to himself, I knew that Rabbit had something to do with this. AFO added, yes, it seems that Miruko is involved. Izuku frowned, I should have known you'd have a mind-reading quirk. AFO explained, of course, it's not a rare quirk. I initially thought you were just careful about leaving evidence behind, but then I wondered why you would want someone to spread your name. That's when I realized the truth about your motives as a villain. Izuku acknowledged, I don't usually give praise, but figuring that out from just 2 clues shows a genius-level IQ. FO responded, thank you for the compliment, but I must address something further. For someone with the ability to get what he wants, you're not doing a great job of it. Izuku chuckled, I'd be lying if I said things are going according to my plan. But beggars can't be choosers, right? FO leaned in intrigued. You're quite interesting. But allow me to ask you a question. Izuku met AFO's gaze, ready for whatever was to come. FO asked, would you like to join us? Love and hate are 2 sides of the same coin. Madara Uchiha was never the type of person to leave his goals in the hands of others, so what changed? After dying at the hands of his younger brother, Madara found himself in an unfamiliar place instead of moving on to the afterlife. He looked down and saw he was standing on top of oddly colored water, catching a glimpse of his reflection. Where am I? He wondered aloud. Yes, it would seem that way, Madara Uchiha, came a voice from behind him. Madara turned to see an old man floating in the lotus position. Hagoromo Otsutsuki, pleasure to finally meet you, Madara acknowledged. Hagoromo silently regarded Madara before speaking. What did you do, Madara? Madara feigned ignorance. What could you possibly mean, Hagoromo? Don't play dumb, Madara, because I know you're anything but that. Hagoromo's voice rose with frustration. Madara chuckled at the sage's anger. I'll tell you what I did. He paused, noticing the urgency in Hagoromo's demeanor. Hey, Six-Path Super Gramps. What do you need? A familiar voice interrupted. Madara's eyes widened as he recognized the voice of an Uzumaki brat he had fought before his third death. I need you and the others here right now. It's urgent, Hagoromo replied. As soon as he finished speaking, a group of people appeared before him. The first was his friend and rival, Hashirama Senju. Next, he recognized Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, though they looked different from when he last fought them. Finally, he noticed two individuals in the robes of the Otsutsuki clan, likely Hagoromo's children. Sasuke broke the silence. What do you want, old man? Look for yourself, Sasuke, Hagoromo said, pointing behind them. The group turned around, shock washing over Hashirama, Naruto, and Sasuke. Madara! Hashirama exclaimed. Without hesitation, Sasuke dashed toward Madara, sword in hand. Sasuke, wait! Naruto shouted, but it was too late. Madara waited until Sasuke was about to swing before sweeping him off his feet. As Sasuke flew momentarily through the air, Madara kicked him further up and jumped after him, overtaking him easily. He sent Sasuke crashing back to the ground with a kick. Hashirama was still in shock, and Naruto watched in disbelief, realizing Madara seemed even more powerful than before. As Sasuke attempted to sit up, Madara's hand wrapped around his throat, preventing him from rising. Foolish child, running into a fight you should already know will end in your defeat. I'm disgusted we share the same blood. Sasuke struggled beneath Madara's grip, but Madara only tightened his hold. Now I recall. You having a very special Rinnegan, much different from mine. I think an Uchiha as pathetic as you isn't worthy of such an eye, so I'll be taking it from you. Madara reached for Sasuke's left eye, only to recoil in shock as he discovered an empty eye socket. What? Where is it? He stood up, releasing Sasuke, who gasped for air. Madara lifted him by the collar. Tell me, Uchiha disgrace, what happened to your Rinnegan? His tone was dark and commanding. Sasuke swung his left hand at Madara, but he caught nothing but sleeve. Sasuke then swung his sword, but Madara dropped him, disarmed him, and kicked him back toward the others. That wasn't your brightest moment, Sasuke, Naruto remarked, offering his hand to help Sasuke up. Sasuke accepted the help, standing slightly dazed. No kidding. But it definitely feels like he's more powerful. They looked over at Madara, who was inspecting Sasuke's sword with a scowl. He turned to face the group, his glare hardening. First the missing Rinnegan, then the missing arm, and now a cheap replica of your sword. He demanded, what happened while I was dead? Hagoromo interjected, we'll explain that after you tell us what you've done. Hashirama finally snapped out of his daze and stared at Madara. Madara, what is Hagoromo talking about? Madara sighed. Fine, I'll keep it short and simple. I cheated death once again. Gasps echoed among the group, followed by disappointed looks. Madara, I thought you were done with all of this. Didn't you agree with me that everything should be left to the future generations? Hashirama questioned. I would have agreed. Had it not been for one thing, Madara replied, capturing their attention. Hagoromo urged him to explain. Go on. When I finally accomplished Project Tsuki no Mi, I was shown something when the light covered the world. For numbers, I didn't think much of it at the time, but after being betrayed and used as a vessel, I realized those numbers must represent a year. So, I decided to use Izanagi and set it to activate just a couple of years before 2170. That's impossible! Hashirama exclaimed. You had no chakra left to use Izanagi after your defeat. Sasuke added. Madara smirked. You're all fools if you think I didn't have contingency chakra seals in case something went wrong. Also impossible, Hagoromo countered. There's no way any of us wouldn't have sensed the abnormal spike in your chakra. Madara shrugged. Well, let's lay out how you're wrong. Hashirama was deeply engaged in a final conversation with me, completely unaware of his surroundings. The Uzumaki was focused solely on our discussion, while Sasuke seemed distracted, clearly ashamed of his past mistakes. Madara addressed Hagoromo, pointing out that he had given away all his power to the two younger generations, leaving him unable to sense the situation. Sasuke, however, had one last question. He asked Madara about the fate of his Sharingan after using Izanagi. Madara explained that if one obtained the Rinnegan, the drawbacks of Izanagi and Izanami no longer applied. This revelation shocked everyone present, even the two sons of Otsutsuki and Hagoromo. Madara continued, revealing that he no longer possessed his Sharingan. Hashirama was curious about why that was the case. Madara then shared a memory from a significant day in his past. He recalled meditating when he heard what he thought was an intruder. When he investigated, he found a young boy, no older than 10, who was blind and exploring the exterior of his home. The boy's hopeful expression and voice left a lasting impression on Madara. He had been bullied for lacking what others had, but he compensated for his blindness with remarkable other senses. Madara admired the boy, seeing a reflection of his late brother, Izuna, in him. Sasuke, unable to contain himself, made a disparaging remark about Madara's connection to his brother. However, a sudden, intense pressure emanated from Madara, causing everyone to instinctively back away in fear. He firmly stated that Izuna was the most important person in his life, and any suggestion otherwise was foolish. Hagoromo urged Madara to calm down, reminding him that he hadn't finished his explanation. The tension eased slightly, but Madara's demeanor remained serious. He turned to Hashirama, expressing disappointment in the state of the world and how leaving things to future generations had led to dire consequences. To prevent further calamity, he revealed that he had revived the project Tsuki no Mei. Naruto interjected, reminding Madara that the project had been a deception orchestrated by Black Zetsu. Madara acknowledged that it was a lie but insisted that the dreams associated with it were genuine. He questioned whether they thought he would repeat past mistakes. Sasuke pointed out that Madara was no longer alive and questioned how he planned to achieve his goals. Madara clarified that he would not be the one to carry out the project this time. Instead, he intended to pass his dreams to his younger brother, Izuku Uchiha. He had trained Izuku thoroughly and, after their confrontation, had allowed him to unlock the Mangekyo Sharingan, leading to the loss of his own eyes. The group was taken aback by this revelation, struggling to process the implications. Madara then prompted them to share what had transpired after his demise. Naruto hesitated before recounting how he and Sasuke had fought each other, ultimately ending the CYCL of love and hatred. Madara, intrigued, asked for clarification about the CYCL. Naruto explained that the two individuals standing next to Hagoromo were his sons, Indra and Ashura. He elaborated on how they had created a CYCL of reincarnation, with Indra reincarnating into Madara and Sasuke, while Ashura reincarnated into him and Hashirama. The CYCL had finally ended with Naruto and Sasuke, bringing a sense of resolution. Madara, however, dismissed their optimism, asserting that a CYCL could easily be re-established. He warned them that they were naive to think it was truly over. As they absorbed his words, Madara urged them to continue sharing their experiences since his last death. The scene shifted to a appealing city bathed in sunlight, Mizudafu City, home to the most prestigious hero school in the country. Izumi was in a rush, her thoughts racing as she hurried toward the entrance of Ua. She had overslept after a grueling training session to MSTR her father's quirk, one for all, and now she was late for her entrance exam. The exhaustion from her rehab session with Kurisu lingered, but she was determined to make it on time. As she approached the gates, she pushed herself to run faster, despite not being able to use her quirk. "I'm gonna make it by the skin of my teeth," she thought, but just as she picked up her pace, she tripped. "Or I'll just die," she muttered to herself. Fortunately, someone caught her before she fell. She turned to thank her savior but was surprised to find no one around. That was weird. "Oh shoot, now I'm actually late," she exclaimed, dashing through the gates and into the building, unaware that someone had been watching her from a distance. Time passed, and Izumi found herself breathing in front of a giant, damaged robot that she had just stopped from crushing another examinee. Confident that she had earned enough points to pass, she rushed over to help the injured student and handed them over to Recovery Girl for treatment. As she started to walk away, she felt a gaze upon her. Looking up, she spotted a masked man observing her from a nearby building. Curious, she floated up to get a better look. The masked man remained still, his eyes fixed on her. "So, that's a unique uniform you got there." The mask is cool as well, she said, trying to break the silence. He didn't respond, but after a moment, he spoke. Soon. Huh. Izumi replied, confused. We'll meet again soon. Izumi Yagi, he said before disappearing from view. Izumi was left staring at the empty space where he had stood. That was weird, she thought, shaking her head as she tried to refocus on the exam ahead. Chapter end. We get an overhead view of a moving bus filled with the young aspiring heroes from UA High. They are chatting away, carefree, discussing who among them is most likely to be popular. Kirishima suggests that the Bakugo twins and Todoroki twins have the best chance at popularity. Tsuyu counters that the Bakugo twins are always angry, which will hinder their popularity. Katsuki reacts angrily, demanding to know what she said, while Katsumi chimes in, urging them to use their individual names. Kaminari, having just met them, comments on their personalities, jokingly giving Katsumi a pass due to her looks. This prompts a heated response from both Katsuki and Katsumi, leading to a playful exchange. Izumi observes the teasing with surprise, noting that it's a first for her to see the two being teased. Momo finds the conversation distasteful, while Uraraka enjoys the banter. Aizawa interrupts, reminding them that they have arrived and to stop messing around. Once the bus stops, the class, followed by Aizawa, steps out to see the impressive unforeseen simulation joint, or USJ. Aizawa instructs them to follow him and 13, their other instructor. Upon entering, they are amazed by the facility, which resembles an amusement park. 13, dressed in a spacesuit, introduces the training facility, explaining that it is designed to prepare them for various disasters. Izumi expresses her excitement at meeting 13, while some classmates giggle at her fangirling. 13 reminds them to stay focused, and Aizawa expresses his frustration at All Might's absence, suspecting he is busy with interviews. 13 explains that All Might is resting in the teacher's lounge after a busy day. Aizawa, resigned, leads the class further into the facility. 13 then takes the spotlight, sharing details about her quirk, Black Hole, which can be used for both rescue and potentially harmful purposes. She emphasizes the importance of using their quirks responsibly, reminding them that their powers can be dangerous even when used with good intentions. The students applaud her speech, and Aizawa prepares to start the rescue exercises. However, the lights in USJ suddenly flicker out, causing confusion and concern among the students. Aizawa, sensing danger, instructs everyone to stay back and protect each other. Izumi points out the ominous purple mist in the central plaza, which Aizawa confirms is not part of the exercises. As villains begin to emerge from the mist, the students realize the situation is serious. Izumi recognizes one of the villains as someone she encountered during the entrance exam, now wearing a new mask and cloak. As the villains gather, one of them, Tamura Shigaraki, demands to know where their target is. According to the schedule they had obtained from Yuge, one of the expected teachers was absent. After successfully gathering all the villains into the USJ, Kurojairi spoke up, suggesting that their colleague might be running late and advised patience. Shigaraki expressed his frustration, contemplating that it would be satisfying to see the teacher's downfall on the news. He even proposed a drastic measure to motivate their colleague to arrive sooner by targeting his students. Izuku, maintaining a calm demeanor behind his mask, responded that it sounded splendid but acknowledged his limitations due to the role assigned to him. Kurojairi reassured Izuku that their MST always had their best interests at heart. Izuku thanked him but reminded everyone that they had a mission to complete. Just then, they noticed Eraserhead charging towards them, prompting Izuku to declare it was time to make their presence known. Shigaraki directed Kurojairi to take action, and in an instant, Kurojairi teleported to the group of startled students. He apologized for the uninvited entrance, indicating that it was the perfect location for the symbol of peace. 13 attempted to intervene but was interrupted by the Bakugo twins, who launched an attack against Kurojairi. Katsumi challenged the villain for his monologuing, while Katsuki declared that weak villains should surrender. Despite their efforts, Kurojairi remained unfazed, acknowledging their school's reputation and revealing his true intention to scatter the students across the facility. As he surrounded the class with portals, Some students managed to evade being teleported, but many were not as fortunate. Shigaraki then proclaimed their singular purpose: to eliminate the symbol of peace. He raised his voice to ensure everyone could hear, announcing the dawn of a new era of chaos led by his army of villains, introducing their organization with a chilling declaration. The atmosphere shifted as Shigaraki proclaimed the revival of the most dangerous organization ever created, leaving a sense of dread in the air. A portal appeared above a large body of water, and out of this portal fell a shaken Izumi. As she plummeted toward the water, fear clouded her mind, preventing her from activating her quirk in time. She hit the water with a splash, and her anxiety intensified as she noticed several water-themed villains surrounding her. Aware of her quirk's limitations, psychokinesis users can't attack and defend simultaneously. She instinctively summoned a sphere-shaped shield around herself, keeping the villains at bay. Once she felt secure, she rose from the water, her shield still in place, and scanned her surroundings. "I think this is the shipwreck zone," she murmured, her breathing quickening without her realizing it. "I need to get over to the ship and—" "Is that Izumi and Mineta?" she exclaimed, spotting her classmates. Flying over to the ship, she dropped her shield and landed, confirming her suspicions. "Izumi and Mineta. Thank God you're both safe." Tsuyu looked concerned. "I told you to call me Tsu." "Wait, Izumi, are you okay? You're breathing faster than usual." "I'm fine, Tsu. I'm just a bit shaken up over all of this and—" "Oh no." Izumi suddenly dropped to her knees, hyperventilating. Tsuyu quickly turned to Mineta. "Keep an eye on the villains. I'll try to calm Izumi down." Mineta, feeling anxious himself, nodded and focused on the situation. "Listen to me, Izumi," Tsuyu said gently. "Everything is going to be okay. We're all going to make it out of here alive, so just try to calm yourself." Izumi clung to Tsuyu, tears in her eyes as she struggled to control her breathing. "Help me. Izuku." "Ikoku," Tsuyu repeated, concerned. "Where is your older brother? He'll know what to do, he always does." "I need him." Izumi gasped, her panic rising. "Calm down, Izumi. We can't think of a plan if you're like this," Tsuyu urged. "A plan?" Izuku always had those in his. Izumi suddenly remembered her notebook. She quickly opened one of the satchels on her belt and pulled it out. Holding it close helped her regain some composure. Flipping through the pages, she stopped at one and skimmed it. "Tsu, how far can you jump?" she asked. "Right now? 60 feet comfortably, 70 if I'm pushing myself," Tsuyu replied. "Perfect. You'll need to push yourself for this jump since you'll be carrying both me and Mineta, but I'm sure we can make it." "That idea is good and all, but what about the villains?" Tsuyu questioned. Closing her notebook, Izumi smiled reassuringly. "I've got that covered. Oh, and tell Mineta to use his quirk on the villains once we're in the air." With newfound confidence, Izumi put her notebook away and leaped off the boat, her palm outstretched toward the water. "Kenkaio Saigai, Warapru." Using her psychokinesis, she sent a burst of psychic energy toward the water, creating a whirlpool. "Tsu! Now! On it!" Tsuyu responded, picking up Mineta and leaping off the boat. "Mineta, use your quirk," Tsuyu instructed. Though hesitant, Mineta complied, throwing the spheres from his head into the whirlpool. They stuck to the villains trapped inside, ensuring their defeat. The whirlpool suddenly stopped, causing the water to rush back to the center where the psychic energy had originally hit, leaving the villains floating aimlessly. Izumi thought to herself, "You're still saving me even when you're not here. Thanks for the boost of confidence, Izuku. I won't let it go to waste." She quickly flew over to her classmates, keeping her eyes on the center plaza of the USJ. "I guess we passed the shipwreck zone," Tsuyu said. Meanwhile, in the center plaza, Izuku was watching Aizawa take down the low-class thugs that Shigaraki had sent for the attack. "This is ridiculous," Izuku muttered. "We're just stalling until All Might shows up. The public won't take notice of a villain group that got defeated for most of the fight." Shigaraki noticed Izuku's concern and an idea formed in his mind. "Hey, Madara, why don't you go let loose a little? I know it must be torturous being cooped up for so long." "Wait, but I was instructed to stay back." Wouldn't that be going against AFO's orders? Izuku replied. Yes, but I'm sure the emissary would understand. This performance wouldn't instill fear in anyone, Shigaraki insisted. Watching Aizawa handle the thugs with ease, Izuku felt a surge of motivation. Not only did he want to improve the Akatsuki's reputation, but he also wanted to challenge Aizawa. Every part of him urged him to embrace the thrill of battle, and without hesitation he dashed toward Aizawa. "Let's dance, Eraserhead," he called out. Caught off guard after finishing off most of the thugs, Aizawa narrowly avoided a kick from the masked villain. He quickly distanced himself and noted the similarities in attire between Izuku and the warp villain. So he's one of the final bosses. I need to be on high alert, Aizawa thought. Izuku smirked. "Erasure, so you think you'll fight me, Quirkless? Alright, I'll make this a fair fight then." He deactivated his Sharingan before charging at Aizawa, who did the same. As they closed the distance, Aizawa attempted to ensnare Izuku with his capture scarf. Izuku reacted quickly, grabbing the scarf and wrapping it around his hand. Aizawa took the opportunity to jump and aim a kick at Izuku, but Izuku anticipated the move and sidestepped effortlessly. He wasn't even looking at Izuku, who was aware that he was erasing Aizawa's quirk. It puzzled him how Aizawa knew when to avoid his attack. Not giving Aizawa a chance to recover, Izuku took the end of the capture scarf wrapped around his hand and secured it around Aizawa's leg, lifting upwards. This left Aizawa on one leg, his other leg suspended by his own scarf. "Really, Eraserhead? I thought someone like you would have figured it out by now," Izuku taunted, kicking the off-balance Aizawa in the jaw, sending him flying. As Aizawa crashed to the ground, he felt shocked. That kick wasn't normal. If I hadn't moved with it, my jaw would have shattered. What's his quirk? Is it a mutation type? That would explain how he sensed my attack, the power in that kick, and why I can't erase his quirk, Aizawa thought. Izuku watched Aizawa stand up shakily, noticing the calculating look on his face, and chuckled. "You heroes really are sore losers. Even someone like you, Eraserhead, can't accept when a villain is your superior." What are you talking about?" Aizawa replied, confused. "I can see it on your face. You're blaming your failures in this battle on what kind of quirk I might have. Eraserhead, tell me, has it crossed your mind for even a second that I've been fighting powerless against you? You can't be serious. Everyone relies on their quirks in battle nowadays. I've never encountered anyone who doesn't. Denial, a common trait shared with heroes who are being outclassed. You claim to not be like the heroes of today's day and age, but deep down, you know you're exactly like them. Shut up. You know nothing about me. You hear me? Nothing." Aizawa shouted. "But that's where you're wrong," showed Aizawa. "I know you more than you probably know yourself. Allow me to show you." Because of their conversation, Aizawa hadn't noticed that his scarf was missing until he saw Izuku putting it on. Without giving Aizawa a moment to think about how he'd let his scarf get stolen, Izuku threw the end of the scarf at Aizawa's left arm. Caught completely off guard, Aizawa had his arm trapped in mere moments. "You've proven to be a pathetic dance partner, but don't worry, this time around. I'll guide you." With ease, Izuku pulled Aizawa closer and kicked him in the ribs, a sound echoing through the air. "I count 2 broken ribs," Izuku noted, then maneuvered Aizawa's arm with the capture scarf. Once it was completely straightened out, he struck his elbow, causing a loud crack. "A broken arm," Izuku said casually, letting go of Aizawa's injured arm and flooring him with a single punch. "And that might be a concussion. Get that one checked out though, there's a chance I might be wrong." Aizawa attempted to crawl away with his one good arm, but Izuku shook his head and stepped on his arm. "And where do you think you're going? The dance isn't over yet." He started applying more pressure, but before he could continue, he was interrupted. "Madara, your assistance is needed elsewhere," Shigaraki called out. Izuku looked over at Shigaraki and saw that Kurogyari had returned. "Looks like it's your lucky day, rehearsal is finishing early." He stepped off Aizawa's arm and made his way over to his comrades. Handing the capture scarf to Shigaraki, Kurogyari opened a portal to where Izuku was needed. "Decay this and have the Nomu pin him down. He's a lot more resilient than I give him credit for," Izuku instructed before walking through the portal. Emerging from the portal, Izuku stood in front of a building. Nothing seemed odd until he saw a series of explosions on the top floor. Today just keeps on getting better and better, he thought, smiling beneath his mask. On the top floor, the Bakugo twins, accompanied by Kirishima, were seen blasting a low-level thug into a wall. That's all of them, Katsumi said. Holy see, you two are amazing, Kirishima exclaimed. Like that wasn't already obvious. And what were you doing this whole time? You may as well have laid down and kicked your feet up with how much you were slacking. Katsuki retorted. I didn't really get a chance to do much since you both insisted on wiping them all out, Kirishima replied. Teach no backbone. How do you expect to become a top hero with that attitude? Katsumi challenged. Answer the question, shitty hair. Katsuki demanded. Firstly, my hair isn't that different from yours, Katsuki. Secondly, Kirishima started, but Izuku interrupted. Now isn't the time to be fooling around, young heroes. The group quickly brought their guards up as they heard his voice and saw him appear from a portal. Good, you know how to put your guards up. Let's see how much that'll help you, Izuku said. So what's your gig? A fashion icon with a face so ugly that he hides it behind a mask. Katsumi quipped. I wouldn't want to steal you and your brother's job, Izuku replied. The Bakugo twins did not take that well. They lifted their gauntlets and took aim at Izuku. You'll have time to mull over what that insult just cost you when you're in trouble. Katsuki threatened. They both pulled the pins on their gauntlets, and the explosion took out the majority of the top floor. They expected the villain to be out of commission, but as the smoke cleared, something shot out from it. 8 trigrams 64 palms, Izuku declared, appearing in front of Katsuki in the blink of an eye. 8 trigram 2 palm. He struck Katsuki with 2 quick attacks. 4 palm. 8 palm. The attacks came too quickly for anyone to react. 16 palm. 32 palm. The flurry continued. 64 palm. It ended just as quickly, sending Katsuki flying back, blood spilling from his mouth as he hit the floor heavily. Both Katsumi and Kirishima rushed to help him to his feet. What was that? Katsumi exclaimed. I don't know. I'm sure we hit him, but he's standing there without a scratch on him. Katsuki gasped, still reeling from the unexpected assault. I'll make you pay for that one. Katsuki shouted, his frustration palpable as he attempted to activate his quirk, only to find it unresponsive. What? What's going on? Why isn't my quirk working? The villain's chuckling escalated into laughter, prompting Izuku to smirk. So my theory is proven true, it feels so good to be right. Katsumi glared at the villain. What are you talking about, you stupid villain? Nothing of your concern, brats, the villain began, but was interrupted by a loud bang from the entrance of the USJ. Izuku's expression shifted to one of determination. He's here, he thought. Looks like we'll have to cut our little battle short, but here, I'll leave you with a parting gift. With that, he activated his Sharingan, causing the Bakugo twins to drop unconscious. Kirishima rushed to support them, panic evident on his face as he realized what had happened. Izuku teleported back to Shigaraki's side with Kamui. So All Might finally showed up. Yeah, Shigaraki replied, glancing at the chaos around them. Nomu managed to damage him, but a couple of brats are insistent on getting in the way. Mind helping me take them out? Izuku looked over to see the brats were the Todoroki twins and Izumi. He hesitated, ready to charge in, but paused when he noticed All Might raising his guard. Shigaraki, Kurojairi, brace yourselves, Izuku warned. Before they could react, All Might charged at them. The Nomu intercepted, throwing a punch at the symbol of peace, only for All Might to counter it. The impact sent shockwaves through the plaza, pushing everyone back except for Izuku, who anticipated the force. Weren't you listening? One of his quirks is shock absorption. Shigaraki shouted. Yeah. What about it? All Might retorted, continuing to exchange rapid punches with the Nomu. The speed of their battle was overwhelming, but Izuku, with his EMS active, observed every detail as if watching a movie. The shockwaves pushed Shigaraki and Kurogyari further away. It's no use. I can't get close to them because of the shockwaves. Kurogyari exclaimed. All Might, still engaged in combat, called out. He said your quirk was only shock absorption, not nullification. That means there's a limit to how much you can take. The Nomu targeted All Might's wound, causing him to falter momentarily, but he pressed on, determined not to be defeated by the creature designed to challenge him. So you were made to fight me, big guy. If you can really withstand me firing at 100% of my power, then I'll have to go beyond that and force you to surrender. As All Might increased the speed of his punches, the Nomu began to struggle. Izuku, despite his enhanced perception, found it difficult to keep up with All Might's relentless assault. Izumi, though not as adept at following the fight, understood the gravity of the situation. He's giving it his all, even though he's injured, and those aren't just random punches, she thought, mirroring Izuku's realization that each strike was targeted and calculated. Having gained the upper hand, All Might launched the Nomu back and leaped after him. A real hero will always find a way for justice to be served, he declared. The ensuing clash sent the Nomu spiraling through the air, culminating in a massive crater when it hit the ground. All Might stood tall, ready to deliver a lesson. Now for a lesson, you may have heard these words before, but I'll teach you what they really mean. Go beyond. Plus, Ultra Ea. With a powerful punch, All Might overwhelmed the Nomu's shock absorption, sending it crashing through the roof of the USJ. The shockwaves reverberated throughout the facility, leaving everyone in awe. I really have gotten weaker, All Might admitted, catching his breath. Back in my heyday, 5 hits would have been enough to knock that guy out, but today it took more than 300 mighty blows. As steam began to rise from him, he realized he needed to end the battle quickly. Without hesitation, he charged at Shigaraki, ready to deliver a final blow. But just as he was about to strike, Izuku's EMS began to spin, reversing the scene to just before All Might's attack. Determined, All Might charged again, but this time Izuku was prepared. As All Might threw his fist forward, it was halted by a black ribcage avatar. Impossible! All Might gasped. My Susanoo will not be broken by mere embers, Izuku declared, a skeletal arm emerging from his avatar and striking All Might, sending him flying past his students and into the staircase of the USJ. Now the real fun begins. Izuku announced, ready for the next phase of the battle. The ribcage of Susanoo vanished, revealing a stunned Shigaraki, who was processing the aftermath of Izuku's attack. Shigaraki exclaimed in disbelief, "Did that seriously just happen? You just tanked a hit from All Might and dealt significant damage to him. This is our chance. We can defeat him now." Izuku responded calmly, "Kurogyari, take Shigaraki back to base." Shigaraki protested, "What? Why? We're so close. He's right there just waiting to be taken down." Izuku replied, "We're further than you think. It's game over because they are here." Before Shigaraki could question him further, the USJ doors burst open and gunshots rang out. A bullet sped toward Shigaraki, but Izuku swiftly intercepted it, snatching it from the air before it could reach its target. "I need you to open a warp gate, Kurogyari," Izuku instructed. "Yes, Madara," Kurogyari acknowledged, promptly creating a warp gate. Shigaraki began to step back into the newly formed portal but hesitated, noticing Izuku standing still, staring at the faculty of UA. "Why are you just standing there? You're not planning to stay here and fight, are you?" Shigaraki asked, concern creeping into his voice. Izuku replied, "I have some things I need to test out, and I don't want my comrades caught in the crossfire." Shigaraki sighed, "Well, if that's the case, just get back in one piece. Can't complete the game without a player too." "Will do. Now get going," Izuku urged. Suddenly, a giant glacier of ice surged toward them. From the hero's perspective, it seemed like they had been encased in ice. However, the efforts of the Todoroki twins were quickly rendered ineffective as their attack shattered in an instant. Izuku thought to himself, "Interesting, I had to put my back into that one." As the mist from the attack cleared, the twins and Izumi realized that Shigaraki and Kurogyari had escaped. Izuku, feeling grateful for their display of strength, decided to show them some of his own. He formed a tiger hand sign and activated Kamui, declaring, Katan, Bakufu Ranbu. Flames spiraled toward the young heroes, freezing the twins in fear. Izumi, though scared, rushed forward and created a barrier with her psychokinesis. Izuku noticed her courage and thought to himself that he needed to intensify his attack. As he infused more chakra into the flames, they grew hotter, and Izumi quickly recognized that she was outmatched in terms of power. A crack appeared in her barrier, and she realized she might not be able to protect everyone. Just then, the barrier dropped completely, and new barriers formed around the Todoroki twins and All Might, leaving Izumi to face the full force of the attack. She braced herself, forming an X-guard, and shouted, Florence smash! A powerful gale of wind erupted, parting the flames and heading straight for Izuku. He leaped into the air just in time to see her attack destroy the back wall of the USJ. When he looked back at her, he noticed the damage to her costume and the burns on her skin, particularly on her arms. Izuku felt a surge of determination. Okay, young hero. You've convinced me to take you seriously, he exclaimed as he prepared another attack. But as the flames approached Izumi, she felt hopeless and guilty, believing she had let Izuku down. Just as the fire was about to connect, a giant wall of cement appeared, blocking the attack and saving the 3 students and All Might. Cementos apologized for his late arrival, explaining that speed wasn't his strong suit. Izuku landed gracefully but was furious, quickly shifting his focus to the next obstacle. He recognized the ectoplasm clones and taunted them, effortlessly dodging their attacks. With a swift move, he defeated the clones, expressing his disappointment in Yue's best. His real challenge came when Present Mike used his quirk to send high-pitched sounds at Izuku. Realizing he needed to neutralize the support item, Izuku activated Kamui and removed it from Mick's costume. Can't use your quirk without a way to condense it, it'll only hurt your comrades, he declared. Suddenly, a bullet whizzed by his head, and Snipe warned him to surrender. Before Izuku could respond, a cement dome surrounded him, and Cementos instructed Ectoplasm to guard it. They believed they had contained him, but a rumble from underground revealed Izuku's true intentions. He emerged holding a beaten-up power loader, surprising Cementos and Snipe. As gravity pulled him back down, he threw power loader at them, forcing them to catch him. Should have left him to fall, heroes, Izuku remarked before delivering a powerful punch to both Snipe and Cementos, sending them tumbling down the USJ steps. He winced in pain, realizing he should have enhanced his strike with chakra. Sensing movement behind him, Izuku activated Kamui, causing Vlad King and Hound Dog to vanish. He was then confronted by a cloud of pink mist, which he quickly absorbed with Kamui. Give me a break, Midnight 2, he muttered. Midnight stood nearby, teasing him about his predicament. Izuku, slightly bewildered, responded, maybe in a parallel world I would be. Midnight playfully remarked that his comment hurt, leaving Izuku questioning how he kept running into heroines who made him doubt his sanity. Izuku flickered in front of Midnight and grabbed her arm before teleporting again, this time to the center plaza where the UA staff was formulating a plan. This is where we part ways, Midnight. Nothing against you, I just want to test my power, he said, activating Kamui once more. The 2 heroes he had brought into the Kamui dimension were quickly returned, now fast asleep from the mist he had introduced. Before the staff could react, he flickered back up the stairs. It's safe to presume that the twins, Izumi and Toshinori, escaped. No matter. Even if I'm displeased, I'll just make up for it by taking down their teachers and co-workers. Clasping his hands together in a snake hand sign, he focused, needing a moment to prepare his jutsu. The ground began to shake violently. What in the world is that? Cementos exclaimed. Look ahead. It's that masked villain. Snipe shouted. Izuku's glowing red eye radiated malicious intent as he declared, drown in despair. Mokutan, Jukai Koten. The UA staff stood frozen, fear preventing them from moving. They realized that nothing in their arsenal could stop this attack, and as the forest began to close in, they understood. This could be their end. Just when hope seemed lost, a green outline surrounded the newly sprouted forest, halting the attack. What's this? My jutsu has been stopped, Izuku mused, his questioning gaze shifting as the roof of the USJ was ripped off and thrown into the sky. What a pleasant surprise, he said, watching as a newcomer descended into the Welcome, Green Tornado. It's such a pleasure to meet you. Under different circumstances, I would have asked for an autograph by now. His sarcasm was evident as he observed Green Tornado, also known as Izuku Yagi, floating down with a chimera perched on her shoulder. It's a good thing Yamada was able to escape and inform us how dire the situation was, otherwise we might have been a second too late, Nizu remarked. Nizu as well. This just keeps getting better, Izuku said, but before he could finish, Inko used her psychokinesis to throw him across the USJ. In that instant he activated his ribcage Susanoo just in time to avoid being crushed. Bad day at the office? He quipped, looking up at Inko, who glared down at him with fury in her eyes. I'll take that silent fury as a yes, he continued, walking toward the center plaza without breaking eye contact. I don't think I need to explain how much of a predicament you've gotten yourself into, but I will anyway. Right now, your comrades are of no use to you, they are simply too weak to face me. Some are even out of commission, and they know better than anyone that ambushes don't work on me. Inko couldn't deny the truth in his words. You're also struggling to hold back my earlier attack. Once you let go, it'll crush your comrades in an instant. So, all you can do to avoid my attacks now is dodge. Yet again, Inko found it hard to argue. He knew the limits of her power. So, with all these handicaps, what makes you think you can defeat me? Izuku challenged. I'm not ranked number 3 in Japan for nothing. You may think you have the upper hand, but in due time, you'll see the mistake you've made by choosing to stay and fight instead of fleeing with your comrades, Inko replied confidently. So be it, Izuku said, forming a tiger hand sign as he prepared for battle. Let me see you dance, Izuku Yagi, until your last breath. Inko was shocked to hear him say her real name, momentarily distracted by the 3 fireballs heading her way. Snap out of it, tornado! Nizu urged. Regaining her focus, Inko dodged as the fireballs soared past the clouds. Futon, Kiryu Ranbu! Izuku shouted. Inko turned her attention back to him, only to be caught off guard by a powerful gust of wind that sent her tumbling through the air. Hold on tight, Nizu, she called, channeling her quirk inward and dispersing the gale with a burst of psychic energy. On your 6. Nizu warned. Inko quickly turned and caught the masked villain with her psychokinesis, but then noticed him leaping toward her. But I thought I had him. Wait, could it be a clone? But I thought his quirk was elemental-based, she thought, reacting quickly to grab the clone and slam it into the ground, creating a crater. Izuku watched, slightly impressed by her reaction time and power. Her reaction time is good, and she's powerful even with the handicap. But will it be enough? He wondered, glancing at the darkening clouds above. Time for my last test. Katon, Heijingakure no Jutsu, he declared. Inko was caught off guard by the sudden attack, taking the brunt of it. Her costume was burnt and damaged, but what troubled her more was the sudden absence of weight on her shoulder. Such a shame, Inko. You were doing so well, Izuku taunted as the ash cleared. Frantically, Inko searched for Nizu, spotting the villain standing atop the highest point of the USJ, holding Nizu by the back of his neck. Nizu, let him go, villain. Or I swear she began. I'll ignore your threats. I'm not in the mood to talk to scum like you and your comrades. I stayed because I wanted to test some things out, and this will be the last thing I test before I return to base, Izuku interrupted. You're not getting away. Inko shouted, determined to save her friend. Your villainy ends today. In a tense standoff, Izuku glared at the heroes before him, frustration evident in his voice. Such a headache you heroes are. I think I'll choose to silence you right here and now. With Nizu struggling in his grasp, Izuku raised his empty hand into the air, electricity crackling around it. I'll let you in on some details of what I'm about to do. This attack brings down thunder from the heavens. All I have to do is send it your way. Inko and Nizu exchanged worried glances, sensing the impending danger. "Kirin," Izuku declared, the name of his attack echoing ominously. A roar resonated in the air, capturing the attention of the principal and the number 3 hero. "What was that?" Inko exclaimed, panic rising in her voice. "Come forth!" Izuku shouted, unleashing a bolt of lightning into the sky. The atmosphere shifted as dark clouds gathered, and a magnificent yet terrifying dragon made of lightning descended, hovering ominously above the "I'd like to see you deal with this attack, green tornado." Izuku taunted. Inko, realizing the threat, quickly conjured the largest barrier she could manage, determined to protect everyone. "Begone with the thunderclap," Izuku commanded, and the resulting destruction was instantaneous. The attack shattered Inko's barrier, leaving a massive crater in its wake and devastating the surrounding areas. Cementos had managed to shield his colleagues with a cement dome, but they were still knocked unconscious. Unfortunately, Inko, being closest to the blast, bore the brunt of the attack, her body severely injured. Izuku surveyed the destruction, a mix of awe and satisfaction on his face. "Oh my! I'm at a loss for words." Nizu looked down in horror, fear evident in his eyes. Izuku noticed and let out a dark laugh. "You see this, Nizu? This is something you couldn't account for. Your symbol of peace has been flattened, and your staff is outclassed. Remember this moment. You are inferior to me in every way." Nizu trembled, tears brimming in his eyes, but Izuku wasn't finished. He dangled the principal over the edge of the roof, relishing the moment. "Goodbye, you filthy lab rat." As he released Nizu, time seemed to slow. Just as the principal fell, a single red feather swooped in to catch him. "Man, I cut that too close." Hawks, the number 4 hero, soared into view, surprising both Nizu and Izuku. "Prominence burn," he shouted, unleashing a wave of fire toward Izuku. Before Izuku could respond, the flames engulfed him. The villain is down. How'd you all struggle with him so much?" Hawks exclaimed, but as Endeavor turned to assess the situation, he realized Izuku was unscathed. "What?" Endeavor gasped, disbelief washing over him. "How can this get any better?" Izuku smirked, enjoying the chaos he had caused. Another hero joined the fray, leaping onto the roof. "I got here as fast as I could. What did I miss, Madara?" Miruko exclaimed, recognizing Izuku. "What are you doing here? Did you cause all this damage?" "It's a long story," Miruko replied, glancing at Hawks. Izuku, however, was already preparing to leave. "If I did all of this?" "Then yes, I did," he admitted, a hint of arrogance in his tone. "But you've never been capable of this level of destruction." Miruko protested, confusion etched on her face. "Does that mean you held back against me this whole time?" "Of course I did. If I hadn't, you'd have been defeated the day we first met," Izuku replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Miruko's ears drooped, hurt by the revelation. "Oh, I'm sorry, did I hurt your feelings?" he mocked, a smirk playing on his lips. "I think I've caused enough damage for one day, so I'll be taking my leave now." As Hawks and Endeavor charged at him, determined to stop his escape, Izuku taunted, "Enjoy dealing with the aftermath of this, heroes." In an instant, he vanished, leaving the heroes to grapple with the consequences of his actions. Though they had technically won, the victory felt hollow, and they knew discussions about the incident would be necessary as they rushed to assist those affected in the USJ. A day had passed since the attack on the USJ, and the damage had affected UA's students and teachers both physically and mentally. The school faced heavy criticism from news outlets across Japan. For a certain veteran pro-hero, however, the news of the attack was not the only thing on his mind. Toshinori wrote a letter, expressing his hope that the recipient was well. He shared that he and Inko had taken positions as teachers at UA High School, guiding the next generation of heroes. Their goal was to help Izumi improve her control over her psychokinesis and one for all. While she was adapting to the changes in her powers, her body struggled to handle the full force of one for all. Despite this, Izumi was determined to find ways to combine her original quirk with one for all, and Toshinori admired her relentless spirit. He reflected on the loss of Izuku and how Izumi had stepped up, showing remarkable bravery during the USJ attack by protecting others and putting herself in harm's way. He admitted feeling guilty about his colleagues getting hurt while he was taken to safety and expressed concern for Inko, who was in poor condition. He acknowledged his feelings of anger towards the villain responsible, recalling past incidents that haunted him. He concluded the letter by mentioning his new role as an instructor and the challenges he faced without Inko's support, hinting that he might seek advice from his old teacher in the future. Meanwhile, a meeting was held with Nizu, Present Mike, Detective Tsukachi, and the pro-heroes who had rushed to confront the masked villain. Endeavor confronted Miruko, demanding to know how she knew the villain. Miruko, usually energetic, appeared visibly upset. She responded curtly, revealing that she didn't know the villain as well as she thought. Tsukachi confirmed her honesty, which only seemed to deepen Miruko's distress. Endeavor pressed for more information, frustrated by Miruko's emotional state. Regaining some of her fiery spirit, Miruko slammed her fist on the table, expressing her frustration at being dismissed. She recounted the relentless pursuit of the villain who had haunted her for years, explaining how she had dedicated herself to closing the gap between them. The realization that the villain had not taken their rivalry seriously hit her hard, and she admitted to feeling like she had been fighting an uphill battle alone. Nizu acknowledged the valuable insights Miruko had shared, particularly the pain she had endured over the years. Coming back to her senses, Miruko realized how much she had revealed and looked around at the shocked faces of her fellow heroes. Tsukachi then asked if she could share how she first encountered the villain. Miruko agreed, recalling a flashback of a crowd gathered around her after a victorious battle, where she had proudly claimed another win as the Tiger Bunny. The cheers of the crowd quickly turned to confusion, signaling the start of a pivotal moment in her journey. Rumi had been in the game for years when a sudden, childish voice pierced the air, crying out for help. Instinctively, she sprang into action, following the sound of the terrified screams. She dashed into an alleyway, only to find herself at a dead end, with no one in sight. "Just kidding. You heroes fall for anything nowadays," the voice taunted, shifting from innocent to dark and mocking. Rumi spun around, ready to confront the source of the voice, only to be met by a singular, oddly patterned red eye. Startled, she forgot about the wall behind her and stumbled back, hitting her head. "Damn it! How'd I forget the wall?" she muttered, rubbing the back of her head as she stood up. To her shock, the once clean alleyway was now stained. "Bunny, bunny, bunny, you're so funny with your twitching nose," the voice sang, and Rumi, now on high alert, prepared for a confrontation. "Really? Do you think I'm 6? It's going to take a lot more than that to humiliate the Tiger Bunny," she retorted, trying to regain her composure. "Considering your name and outfit, I'm not surprised you're not embarrassed." "It seems I need to step up my game," the villain quipped, managing to flip a cape over Rumi's head without her noticing. Frantically, she pushed the cape away, but the villain continued to taunt her. "Seriously, you're doing hero work, not performing stunts. Just can it and fight me already," Rumi demanded, her patience wearing thin. "Fight you? Why bother? You'll be a bit preoccupied trying not to drown," the villain replied, a sinister edge to their tone. "Hold on a second, what do you mean drown?" Rumi started, but before she could finish, the walls of the alleyway crumbled, and a wave surged over her. "What the hell? What did he do?" Panic set in as she struggled to open her eyes, unsure of where to go. Fortunately, her rabbit ears picked up the sound of someone whistling, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. It was an ominous sound that sent shivers down Rumi's spine, but it was her only option. She began swimming through the thick, dark water, the whistling guiding her. Eventually, she reached a dead end where the whistling was loudest. With time running out, she decided to give it her all. Taking a deep breath, Rumi tensed her leg muscles and began to spin, her figure becoming a blur. With a determined shout, she unleashed her move, and upon contact, the barrier shattered like glass. She fell through the newly opened space and felt as if she had just awakened from a nightmare. There was no blood on her, no exhaustion. She was back in the alleyway that had just collapsed. Confused, Rumi stood up and made her way out of the alley, adjusting to the setting sun. As she looked up, she saw a lone figure clad in a patterned mask with a single hole for the right eye and a robe bearing a symbol. Rumi recognized him immediately. "What do you think you're doing?" she called out. The masked figure acknowledged her but turned to leave. "Hey, where do you think you're going?" she shouted, but he vanished before she could reach him. Presently, Miruko recounted her experience. "After that, I kept chasing after him, but he only started to fight me when I changed my hero name and outfit. Either he didn't want to be seen fighting someone with a name like that, or there was some hidden motive." Nizu nodded. "Thank you, Miruko. This information will help us greatly." Miruko offered, "If you want a rough sketch of the symbol I saw on his robe, I can do it for you." Tsukachi was about to respond when Hawks interjected, "Nah, you don't want a sketch from her. Trust me, I saw her art projects." Flushed with embarrassment, Miruko lunged at Hawks, who narrowly avoided her kick and flew out the nearest window, with Miruko in hot pursuit. "Get back here. I told you there'd be consequences for mentioning those projects," she yelled. As their shouting match faded, Endeavor stood up and left the room, frustrated with the rookie's lack of focus. Present Mike chimed in, "Well, that went better than expected." Nizu agreed, although, "We might need to keep an eye on Miruko. She needs to take care of herself." Tsukachi added, "While you focus on that, I'll dig deeper for information on the other villains we discussed, and I need to ask Miruko for that sketch." Nizu wished him luck, and Tsukachi left the room, followed by Mike after being dismissed. Nizu sat back in his chair, feeling drained from the day's chaos. "Meeting adjourned," he declared. Mugen then spoke up, "Hi. This is somewhat awkward. How long has it been? Like, 7 months? Well, at least I am back, so that's a start. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. It's just the opening chapter of Season 2, so there's a lot to look forward to. I probably won't update for a month due to prelims, but trust the process, and your satisfaction will be guaranteed. So with that all said, have a good one, everyone, because Season 2 of Wake Up to Reality is underway." The sound of crickets chirping under the night sky was interrupted as a skinny blonde man rang the doorbell of an apartment. He stood still in the cold, waiting until a pink-haired lady opened the door. "Yagi," she greeted bluntly. Fully expecting the straightforward welcome, Tashinori brushed it off. "Nice to see you as well, Kurisu. How's Izumi holding up?" Letting him inside, Kurisu brought out some tea she had prepared, and they both kneeled down at her table. "She has been a lot quieter than usual," Kurisu said. "It makes sense, though, experiencing a villain attack must have been quite traumatic." Tashinori held his tea, guilt gnawing at him as he recalled when Izumi faced the masked villain's attack. Has she spoken to you at all?" he asked. "She has, but only briefly. I tried to talk to her about the attack, but she said she isn't ready to recall the events." He took a sip of his tea, trying to calm his emotions, but the image of his daughter trembling in fear replayed in his mind, reminding him of his helplessness. "Thank you," he said softly. Kurisu replied. "Thank you for taking care of my daughter for so many years. Her mother and I haven't always been there for her because of work, and with what happened to her mother, it might get worse since I'll be filling in for her until she wakes up. If there's any way I can repay you for all you've done for my family, I'll do it." Kurisu let his words sink in, feeling perplexed. Yes, she had helped his children for years, but she believed it was simply the right thing to do. "I appreciate the sentiment, Yagi," she said, "but I'm not helping your daughter for personal gain. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do and because it's what Izuku wanted." A moment of silence passed, a tradition whenever the boy's name was spoken. "If you wish to repay me, make an effort to spend more time with Izumi. She is a bright and wonderful girl, Yagi, and I don't want to see her in more pain than she is already in." Tashinori took a moment to process her wish and then smiled brightly. "I'll make it a priority. But I'll go get Izumi, and then you can be on your way." After giving the students of Class 1A a day off to collect themselves and allowing the staff some time to recover, they found themselves back in class, ready to move on from the attack. However, despite the break, the mood in the classroom was not as upbeat as usual. "Did you guys see the news yesterday?" Terest. Yeah, they're laying into you pretty hard right now, Ojiro replied. Some critics are even calling for the school to close until they can improve security. I doubt the principal would shut the school down, Momo said. It would jeopardize a lot of students' progress, especially for the third years who will be turning pro come graduation. But what do they prioritize? The safety of all the students, or the crucial experience that the third years need? It's a lose-lose situation, Ciro lamented. Come on guys, it wasn't all bad. Everyone made it out alive, and we're all back at full strength. Kaminari said. Almost everyone, Jair pointed out, tilting her head toward an empty seat in the class, where Katsumi sat, resting her chin on her balled-up fist and gazing out the window. But at least, Kaminari started. And we can't forget about the teachers, Kirishima added. They went through a lot, and Green Tornado had it the worst. Sitting behind Katsumi, Izumi winced at the mention of her comatose mother. Oh see, I'm so sorry for bringing that up, Izumi, Kirishima exclaimed. Taken aback by the apology, Izumi scrambled to reassure him. No, it's fine. My mom did the right thing in the end. She put others above herself to ensure their safety, like any hero would. If she were here right now, she'd tell us not to dwell on the past, to stand tall and move forward with a smile. Her words brought smiles to most of the class. Wise and insightful words, Tokoyami said. I'd expect nothing less of the number 3 hero. Yeah. Let's move on from the negative stuff and start focusing on getting stronger. Uraraka added. The majority of the class agreed, cheering as they managed to rid their minds of the USJ attack. As the clock ticked to 8:24 a.m., the class president, Ida, stormed up to the podium. Attention! Homeroom class is about to begin. Everyone stop talking and take your seats, he announced. It's good to see you acting normal again, Ribbit, Tsuyu said, but Kirishima pointed out, we're all sitting. Yeah, you're the only one standing, Ciro added. Ida paused, then slowly walked back to his seat, shaking a bit in embarrassment. Dang it, he muttered. Don't sweat it, Uraraka said. Just in front of Ida sat Tsu and Mina, the latter trying to strike up a conversation with the frog girl. Hey Tsu, Mina leaned back in her chair a little too far, and Tsu placed her hands on the chair to stop her from falling. Who do you think is going to teach class today? Mina asked. No idea. Mr. Aizawa should still be in the hospital recovering from his injuries, Tsuyu began, but her response was interrupted when the door slid open, revealing a man practically covered head to toe in bandages. Morning, Aizawa said. The class looked on in shock at how their now mummified teacher was somehow up and moving. Man, what a pro, Kaminari remarked. Mr. Aizawa. I'm glad you're okay, Ida exclaimed. The class watched their teacher slowly limp toward the podium, showing that he hadn't fully recovered from his fight. You call that okay? Uraraka questioned. My well-being is irrelevant, Aizawa replied. What's more important is that your fight isn't over yet. Our fight? Katsumi asked. Wait, you don't mean, Izumi started. Not more villains. Mineta exclaimed. A pregnant silence filled the air as the class awaited their teacher's announcement. The Yudata Sports Festival was about to start, and the tension in the air was palpable. Kirishima was filled with excitement, ready to cheer on his classmates. However, Kaminari interrupted him, expressing concern about the timing of the festival so soon after the recent villain attack. Jairu echoed his worries, questioning whether it was wise to hold the event under such circumstances. Ojiro added that the villains were likely to strike again, especially with everyone gathered in one place. Aizawa sighed, knowing his next words wouldn't be well received. He explained that the administration believed the festival would demonstrate that the threat had been managed and that the school was safe. Katsumi reacted strongly, pointing out the reality of their situation. Students were still in comas, and the administration's reassurances felt hollow. Izumi tried to calm her down, reminding her that they needed to focus on moving forward and that their loved ones would wake up. Katsumi eventually settled down, and Aizawa continued, informing the class that despite the drop in numbers, security would be heightened with top heroes patrolling the event. Shoto noted that if the villains attempted to ambush them again, they would be met with a strong defense. Shoka raised a valid point about the hero's willingness to take on extra duties, but Aizawa explained that it was an opportunity for them to see the potential of UA students up close. Momo emphasized that the festival was a prime chance for students to be scouted by top heroes, making it an important event for anyone aspiring to go pro. Aizawa concluded by stressing the significance of the festival, reminding them that it was a rare opportunity that no aspiring hero could afford to miss. After a rigorous morning, the bell rang for lunch, but as the students opened the door, they were met by a crowd of first-year students blocking their way. Uraraka and Ida questioned the crowd's presence, while Mineta protested against being held hostage. Katsumi, unfazed, explained that the other students were there to scout the competition, intrigued by their class's survival of a real villain attack. As she glared at the crowd, a student with gravity-defying purple hair, Hitoshi Shinso, stepped forward, commenting on their situation. His words struck a nerve with Katsumi, who felt her anger rising again. Shinso's remarks about their class being egomaniacs only fueled her frustration, leading to a heated exchange. "Now move before I take that cotton candy off your head." Katsumi's voice was sharp, but just before she could retaliate, Izumi placed a hand on her shoulder, urging her to stay calm. The tension in Katsumi's hands dissipated as she pushed her way through the crowd. Shinso stood before Class 1A, his expression serious. "Listen closely, everyone. I didn't make the cut last time, but I have another chance. If any of us perform well in the sports festival, the teachers might transfer us to the hero course, which means they'll have to make room by transferring others out." Words hung in the air, surprising the students, as Aizawa hadn't mentioned this during his speech. Shinso continued, "Some might be scouting the competition, but I'm here to tell you that if you don't bring your best, I'll take your spot. Consider this a declaration of war." With that, he left the students to ponder his message. A classmate from 1B, Tetsu, attempted to confront Class 1A about their perceived superiority, but his words didn't resonate as strongly as Shinso's had. A short time later, Izumi found herself in the teacher's lounge with her father, Toshinori, who had invited her for lunch. It quickly became clear that lunch was not the only reason for his invitation. "Only 50 minutes?" Izumi exclaimed. "Yeah, that's about how long I can use my power now." "I overdid it," Toshinori admitted, his skeletal hands preparing green tea. He continued, "That Nomu was tough, but the masked villain Madara really pushed my limits. It's like he knew exactly where to strike. Now, I can barely maintain my form for an hour and a half." Concern filled Izumi's eyes as she listened. "I heard Aizawa and 13 talking about how you used up all your time doing hero work on the way to school. Why didn't another hero handle it?" Toshinori looked down, guilt evident on his face. "I just can't help it. When I see someone in danger, my body goes on autopilot. There were so many crimes that day, and I just kept trying to solve them until I was almost out of time." Izumi's understanding deepened as she recalled her own experience. "I felt that way too when Madara attacked us. I was scared, but my body just moved. I sacrificed my arms to stop the attack without thinking." Her father's expression softened as he processed her words. "You don't need to apologize. I could have managed my time better, but we can't change the past. We can only learn from it." He set a freshly brewed cup of tea in front of her. "Here, have some tea. And before I forget." He reached under the table and handed her a bento box. "I know it won't compare to your mother's cooking, but I wanted to make something for you." Izumi smiled as she accepted the bento and began to eat. "Now that we've talked about the past, let's discuss the future. The main reason I asked you to join me is to talk about the festival." Toshinori moved to the window, his tone serious. "To be frank, my days as the symbol of peace are numbered. Soon, I'll have to pass that title on." Izumi paused, swallowing her food as she listened intently. "And some villains are starting to notice that. Someone has to step up to keep people safe." He turned to her, his hand outstretched in a fist. "I gave you my power for a reason. Because you will be the hero who takes my place." Izumi looked down at her tea, a contemplative expression on her face. What if I don't want to be the next All Might?" Toshinori's brow furrowed in confusion, but he waited for her to explain. I was listening to my friend Uraraka talk about her reasons for wanting to be a hero, and it made me question my own motivations. I never had a clear goal like Katsuki or Katsumi, and I never shared Izuku's admiration for All Might when we were kids. Did you figure out your reasoning? Toshinori asked gently. Not really. Of course, I want to save people, but to be the new All Might? I just don't think that's what I want. I want to forge my own path, be my own hero. Izumi pondered deeply, brainstorming reasons that would make her stand out rather than just following in someone else's footsteps. I think I might have something, Izumi said, her eyes sparkling with determination. Toshinori leaned in, eager to hear her thoughts. I'm all ears. Izumi continued. While it's obvious that All Might has been the greatest hero to ever live, dropping crime rates to below 6%, it would be nearly impossible to maintain that level of peace without a lasting symbol to inspire future generations. So what if there was a way to uphold that peace for years to come, even without a figure to look up to? Toshinori pondered her idea, the concept sounding almost too good to be true. I know it sounds impossible and I just thought of it, she admitted, her voice wavering slightly. Suddenly, she felt a gentle hand ruffle her hair. Looking up, she saw her father smiling brightly at her. It's a very admirable goal, Toshinori said warmly. If you truly want to achieve it, I believe you can. Tears welled in Izumi's eyes, but she quickly wiped them away and stood up to hug her father, who embraced her in return. After breaking the hug, Toshinori continued, if you want to make that dream a reality, it all starts here. A rush of excitement coursed through her as Toshinori began his speech. This sports festival is something that the pros, and the entire country, will be watching closely. Think of it as your debut. Train hard, aim for first place, and prove to yourself that your dream is possible. Izuku Yagi, introduce yourself to the world and proudly say, I am here. With unwavering determination, Izumi nodded at her father. No words were needed, she would show through her performance that she could achieve her dreams. Time passed, and the day of the sports festival finally arrived. It was every student's chance to showcase their hard work and catch the attention of pro heroes across the nation. Wow, they've really kicked it up into high gear this year. Consider me impressed, exclaimed a young man of average height with white hair, dressed in a black shirt and breathes, a face mask, and a headband covering his left eye. This year's festival is sure to bring some exciting new prospects. I can barely wait to see what they're made of, he added, anticipation evident in his voice. Mugen was back, full of energy and excitement after finishing his exams. He had promised everyone he would return with a renewed spirit, and he was eager to prove it. Grateful for the patience and support of his friends, he acknowledged that it wasn't always easy to follow someone with his unpredictable schedule. But now, he was committed to staying engaged throughout the summer. With that enthusiasm, he hoped everyone would enjoy the new chapter he had prepared. Tensions were high in Class 1A's locker room as they prepared to take the field. The vibrations from the crowd's cheers filled the air, and the students tried to ignore the overwhelming number of spectators. Some engaged in conversation to ease their nerves, while others remained silent, contemplating the challenges ahead. Their focus shifted abruptly when the door swung open, revealing a pale Katsuki Bakugu, followed closely by his sister, Katsumi, who looked deeply concerned. Katsuki, you're not prepared to compete in this state. Please sit this one out. There will be other festivals, Katsumi urged, her voice filled with worry. Katsuki ignored her, walking over to an empty table and sitting down with his back turned to everyone. Well, he seems cheery, Kaminari remarked, trying to lighten the mood. Cut him some slack, Kirishima added, sensing the tension. Katsumi buried her face in her hands, frustrated. Izumi approached her, asking, So, how long has he been awake? 3 days, Katsumi replied. 3 days? That's not nearly enough time to recover from a coma. Izumi exclaimed. Katsumi shook her head. That's not why I'm saying he isn't fit to compete. Izumi raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Katsumi continued, Katsuki is strong, but he hasn't recovered mentally. When we fought that masked villain I looked into his eyes and suddenly, What happened? Izumi pressed. I saw so many horrifying things designed to exploit my fears. There was this haunting whistle that wouldn't stop. I was terrified, but when one of my fears got too close, I exploded at it and woke up, Katsumi explained. So it was an illusion? Just how many quirks does that villain have? Izumi pondered. Being in there was a nightmare. I felt like I was losing my mind. Katsuki was in a similar situation for longer, and he seemed jumpy around us, Katsumi said, her concern evident. Just then, an explosion interrupted their conversation. The class turned to see a wide-eyed Bakugo staring at Kirishima, who had his quirk activated. What was that all about? Shiro shouted. What did you do, Kirishima? Katsumi asked, exasperated. My hair isn't that different from yours. I just asked if he was feeling all right. Kirishima defended himself. Before they could question Katsuki further, Ida burst through the locker room doors, declaring, "Game faces on everyone. It's time to head out to the arena." Meanwhile, in another part of the stadium, Mafuyu Kurisu navigated the corridors, feeling bothered and slightly tired. She sighed, frustrated by the stairs. Why did there have to be so many? Elevators aren't out of U.A's budget. As she turned a corner, she bumped into someone and stumbled backward, twisting her ankle. "Oh my, I'm so sorry," a voice exclaimed. Looking up, she saw a white-haired man extending his hand to help her up. "Thank you," she said, accepting his assistance. "I should apologize too, I wasn't paying attention. I'm Mafuyu Kurisu." "Don't worry about it. I'm Hisashi Midoriya, nice to meet you," he replied, adjusting the mask covering his left eye. "The pleasure is mine, Midoriya, but I can't chat for long, I might be late," Kurisu said. "Of course, I wouldn't want to keep you from the opening ceremony." "See you around, Kurisu," Hisashi said as he turned to leave. As Kurisu began to walk away, she let out a small yelp of pain. Hisashi quickly turned back, concerned. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I think I just twisted my ankle when I was trying to catch myself," she replied. "Is there anything I can do to help?" "I can't just leave you here," he insisted. After a moment of thought, Kurisu felt a blush rise to her cheeks. This is a little embarrassing, but could you carry me to my seat? Someone close by can heal me, and I promise we're not far away." As swiftly as he could, Hisashi turned around and crouched down just enough for Kurisu to hop on his back. He encouraged her to guide him and to hang on tight so he could get her to her seat before the opening ceremony. Not wanting to waste any time, Kurisu took off her heels, climbed on his back, and carefully wrapped her legs around his torso while giving the white-haired man directions. Before long, they arrived at the door to the teacher's box. Kurisu complimented Hisashi on his speed, to which he modestly replied that it was nothing special, attributing it to a clean diet and exercise. Before she could respond, Hisashi knocked on the door. Tashinori opened the door and greeted them, expressing his pleasure at seeing Kurisu and inquiring about the young man carrying her. Kurisu's face turned red as she tried to explain the situation, but Hisashi gently silenced her, assuring her that there was no need to be flustered. He carefully set her down, making sure to support her as she regained her balance, and then explained to Tashinori that he had encountered Kurisu while looking for his seat. She had twisted her ankle and needed assistance. Tashinori nodded in understanding and smiled at Hisashi, thanking him for his help. Hisashi introduced himself, and Tashinori invited them inside to ensure Kurisu received the care she needed. Kurisu nodded in agreement, still trying to regain her composure. Hisashi asked if it would be all right to make sure Kurisu was healed before he left, to which Tashinori agreed. As they entered the dimly lit room, Hisashi led Kurisu to an unoccupied couch while Tashinori went to fetch Recovery Girl. Kurisu expressed her gratitude, acknowledging that she likely wouldn't have made it on time without his help. Hisashi downplayed his actions, feeling it was only right to assist her since it was partly his fault she had injured herself. Kurisu smiled at his selflessness and offered to return the favor in any way she could. Their conversation was interrupted when Tashinori and Recovery Girl approached them. Tashinori informed Recovery Girl of Kurisu's injury, and she commented on the challenges of climbing stairs in heels, advocating for elevators. She then turned her attention to Hisashi, thanking him for his kindness and expressing her appreciation for gentlemen like him. Hisashi felt honored by her praise. Recovery Girl assured Kurisu that the treatment wouldn't take long and quickly attended to her injury. After a gentle kiss on the cheek, Kurisu felt the swelling in her ankle subside, though a wave of drowsiness washed over her. Recovery Girl advised her to sit for a bit, and Kurisu thanked her for the help. Looking to the other heroes in the booth, Recovery Girl requested assistance to get back to her office. 13 volunteered, and soon they left the booth. Toshinori then turned to Hisashi, expressing his pleasure in meeting him and reiterating his gratitude for helping Kurisu. He warned that if Hisashi lingered too long, he might miss the opening ceremony. Hisashi stood up and bowed to both Toshinori and Kurisu, thanking them for allowing him to stay and help. As he turned to exit, Present Mick's voice echoed through the stadium, announcing the class, which prompted cheers from the crowd. Hisashi lamented missing the opening ceremony and the first event. Kurisu glanced at Toshinori, who understood her unspoken question. Toshinori then made Hisashi an offer he likely wouldn't want to refuse. Meanwhile, all the first-year classes lined up on the field, waiting for the pro-hero Midnight to announce the introductory speech. Midnight called out Katsuki Bakugu for the student pledge, drawing everyone's attention to the explosive teen, who appeared nervous as he stepped forward. He took a step up the staircase, feeling the weight of the crowd's stares on him. His heart raced uncontrollably as he climbed higher, his eyes darting around the sea of faces, all scowling at him with glowing red eyes and a strange Tomo pattern. Halfway up, his vision blurred, and he glanced down at his legs, feeling his knees threaten to buckle. He stood strong, determined to prove to them, and to himself, that he was capable. As he reached the podium, whispers filled the air, clear enough for him to hear. They spoke of blame and judgment, questioning why he was still allowed to study at UA. He felt the weight of their words, the memories of his past haunting him. He thought to himself that he was a monster, a murderer, unworthy of being a hero or even a decent human being. Just as despair threatened to consume him, a voice broke through the darkness. "Bakugu!" He snapped his gaze to Midnight, the pro-hero, her concern evident. He felt like a deer caught in headlights, trembling. She asked if he was okay, and though he wanted to say no, he knew he had to keep moving forward. Nodding to her, he turned to the microphone, steadying his breath. He started, his throat tightening. He didn't know what to say, but he needed to say something, not for the crowd but for himself. "Gonna win." Silence followed, then a wave of boos crashed over him from the audience. Ida's voice cut through, expressing disappointment at his disrespect. Ignoring them, Bakugu walked down the steps, refusing to lose focus again. Izumi watched him join the rest of the class, realizing he wasn't speaking to them but rather to himself. Midnight regained the crowd's attention, announcing the start of the festival. A hologram displayed the first event, landing on an obstacle course. She explained that all 11 classes would participate in this challenging contest, and as long as they stayed on course, they were free to use their quirks however they wished. The classes gathered at the giant red gate, preparing in various ways, stretching, flexing their quirks, or calming their nerves. Izumi thought to herself that it was time to see if her training had paid off. As the green lights turned off, everyone surged forward. "Begin!" Midnight shouted. The first years sprinted ahead, eager not to fall behind. Present Mike provided commentary, while Aizawa questioned how he had been convinced to participate. In the early stages, getting through the doorway proved challenging, with too many students vying for position. Suddenly, a wave of icy wind shot through, leaving some students momentarily trapped. "Apologies, but you were in my way," Shoto said, taking the lead with ease, while Shoka followed closely behind. Class 1A thrived, leveraging their knowledge of Shoto's quirk. As the siblings bickered, they failed to notice a new competitor flying just ahead of them. "What's this? Since when did you have a flying student in your class, Eraserhead?" Present Mike exclaimed. Aizawa noted the unexpected development, realizing she had been training hard. Flying above the competition, wrapped in an emerald green outline of her quirk, Izumi was determined to show the world her strength. "This one is for you." I won't let your efforts go to waste, she declared, ready to make her mark.